Hey guys. This is part 11 of What If Naruto Faked His Death. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 42, The Placement Trials. Point 4. What in the Emperor's name is going on? That boy is highly skilled, Gahara-sama. Please tell me this is some kind of sick joke. A portly only man with thinning gray hair said. He wore a long purple robe with a silver eagle stitched on his shoulders. Yes, I too would like some explanation, Ka-san. Judging from just that very short exchange, I would say he has been trained for years. Those were some impressive jutsu, Jolie said, a twinge of anger in her eyes. If this is a game you have put together for your enjoyment, I am not amused. He even killed one of our clansmen. Gahara couldn't keep the look of hunger off her face as she stared at the image of Naruto standing in the center of the now lifeless bodies of the Empire's shinobi on the screen. Oh, I had no idea this would happen, she said honestly. He's magnificent. I want to see his blood. It will be magnificent. I can't wait, she said to herself, almost salivating in anticipation. Other teams will have seen that display of power. It's likely that many teams will keep their distance now. Tetsu said, currently doing the math. He was sure now that it would take much more than the trials competitors to take Naruto down. The speed and fluidity of his movements were flawless. He wasn't even trying, and if I was to guess, it's probably only Gahara who can see that. I haven't seen her this worked up in my life. I'm glad I warned my team against trying to fight Naruto. But this is far beyond anything I could have imagined. That won't do at all. I demand that boy's head. Where is the closest team? The old man wearing purple said, his face twisted in a scowl. There appears to be 3 teams in a close proximity. However, each team has halted their approach towards the target after what happened to the previous wave. One of Jolie's bodyguards said with a short bow. Quadruple the bounty on his head. I will take responsibility for the extra amount, the man in purple said. I'll equal that amount as well, another of the military division heads said. This one wore dark blue with a red fish etched on his shoulders. One by one, the division commanders that were in attendance all donated the same amount. Naruto's bounty was now high enough to grant whoever claimed it enough money to buy their way into the richest areas of the inner empire. They may never have to work again. Oh my, you're making it almost impossible for them to resist. Gahara giggled as the information began to be processed, appearing on the screens around the arena for all competitors and spectators to see. You seem to be enjoying yourself, Ka-san, Jolie said with a light frown. Why wouldn't I be? I can't remember there ever being a placement trials this exciting, Gahara answered enthusiastically. Still, you're going to make the officers and other soldiers upset that they don't get a chance to cash in on that bounty. At least not just now. If the young man makes it to the borders of the arena, then I guess it would be fair game. You think he will get that far? There are still over 100 competitors left. Given the numbers he's up against, it should be no problem really, the old man wearing purple declared. Except for the fact that with so many people going after the same thing, there will be infighting. Then there is also the fact that they're in a competition against each other. They need to defeat another team, so even if every team abandons the main goal of completing their mission, it's more likely they will fight against each other for the chance to take the bounty for themselves, Gahara reasoned. She has a point, but if you're so convinced that the test will not be hindered, then we have to keep things going and not let anyone else get involved, at least for now. Still, in case things go south, I'll order the guards at each exit to be doubled, Jolie added. Meanwhile, Naruto let out a breath he didn't even know he was holding. He could see Karen and the others moving slowly across the field. It would probably take them 2 hours at the speed they were going. He guessed that he would have discouraged many of the contestants from attacking him. I wonder what their next move will be, Kurama mused. The large fox was really somewhat bored with the proceedings. There was no challenge in fighting shinobi that were only around Genin, bordering on Chunin level. Hell, most Jounin couldn't keep up with Naruto if he was fighting seriously. I'm not sure. They could abandon these exams and come at me full force. Or they could try and tempt more of the trialists to attack me. Either way, the top priority has to be getting out of here with as many people safe as possible, Naruto replied. Why not just use your clones then? You could get everyone across this stadium in under an hour, the fox pressed. Naruto nodded in agreement. That thought did cross my mind, but they will just chase us down. When we leave, we need them to know that if they value their lives, they won't come after us. It is a good idea though. Maybe if we can get off the radar for a while, it would work better. Then why not summon me? A single Bijudama will be enough to make sure nobody ever thinks to question that attacking us will lead to nothing but death. I would rather not show my trump card just yet. I think it would be smarter to save your chakra for emergencies. Besides, this way I can see what type of shinobi they have. From the sounds of it, each of the 5 families that make up the empire has a different Kekkai Genkai that Madara thought might be useful. I want to find out what they all are, Naruto replied. Suit yourself, but I do hope the next fight is a little more entertaining, Kurama replied with a snort. Well, the message has been sent that I am willing to kill to save my friends. I don't think I should need to be that excessive in the future, at least not with Genin-level shinobi, Naruto replied. He felt quite guilty about killing his would-be assailants, but killing is a part of a shinobi's life. He saw that firsthand the first time he left Konoha. Kakashi had killed the demon brothers after they had been captured. Then after that he witnessed the deaths of Haku and Zabuza. Just because they are a genin today, doesn't mean they are not dangerous. Showing mercy could cost you later on, Kurama lectured. Naruto looked down. He knew that Kurama was right. A shinobi's life was sacrifice and suffering, even for a ronin. So I just mercilessly kill anyone that gets in my way? He asked, his voice void of warmth. It's the safest option. Sometimes showing mercy can do the person more harm than good. Look at your so-called friend, Sasuke. His life was spared, and the hatred that so-called mercy created ate away at him until he was nothing but a shell of a man devoured by the need to blame someone else for his problems. That's a little harsh, but I guess I understand where you are coming from. I should still be able to keep some of them alive. They won't all be so willing to fight me after what they have seen. I'm not saying you have to go out of your way to kill, just don't go trying to keep your enemies alive for the sake of being a nice guy. It won't end well for you. I know you want everyone to be able to understand each other, but look around you. There is no effort from this so-called empire to do anything but rule over the weak with force, Kurama said calmly before shutting off their connection. Naruto used his senjutsu to scan the area for any shinobi approaching. 2 teams still want to attack me, 1 from each direction. But why? He asked himself, not yet noticing the rather large sum of money placed on his head. I don't want to risk them attacking the others, I better do something about it. He sighed, forming 2 clones that immediately ran to intercept each group. Naruto, deciding that his clones could deal with everything, now ran to join up with his companions. Traveling the distance in almost a minute before coming to a stop in front of Karen with a small smile on his face. You went overboard, you know that, right? The red-headed Uzumaki said, slightly scalding the Jinchuriki. Naruto rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment, while the group continued to move, not wanting to waste any time standing around talking. I only did it to keep us safe, Naruto replied. I guess that it probably worked for now. But how long do you think it will be before they send someone stronger after us? There are some high-ranking officers here watching the exams. There are even 2 of the members of the royal family who are in line for the throne, Rei said darkly. Despite her angered tone, she was stunned that Naruto was that strong. Then I'll just beat them too, Naruto said confidently. As they sped across the open fields, the first of Naruto's clones came to a stop in front of a group of 3 shinobi a few years younger than himself. Hi there, the clone said in a rather friendly tone, however the look on his face was anything but friendly. I suggest you run away. I have no real desire to kill you. The 3 recruits backed up a little, a scowl on their faces. We're not scared of you, you filthy peasant scum. A boy with long silver hair and emerald green eyes spat. Why, yeah, he's right, one of his teammates said, a small bald boy. The final member of their squad was a girl with long brown hair. All 3 recruits jumped at Naruto's clone, who casually deflected their strikes one after the other. Well, you're not bad, but your teamwork sucks. You'll never be able to land a hit on me like that. Show me something else. I bet you know some pretty cool jutsu, Naruto's clone said casually as the 3 picked themselves up while fishing for information on what their families might be able to do. The bald boy growled, knowing that the blonde was just toying with them. He had seen what had happened to the last group. Their plan was to sneak up on him when he rested, and keep their distance until then. But now they were facing the possibility of a painful death. Fine, I'll show you. Shikuten, incinerating flare. The clone's eyes widened slightly as an orb of fire and wind shot towards him. His surprise was short-lived, and Naruto easily sidestepped out of the way. Then he noticed the silver-haired boy speed around behind him at an incredible speed. So scorch and swift release, huh? Not bad at all, he mused before spinning away from the boy's attack and sending him crashing into his bald teammate. That just leaves you. What's your clan's special skill? Naruto asked the girl. The young brunette was terrified. Her opponent wasn't even trying and making them look like fools. And enhanced senses and strength. Our clan is mostly used for tracking and taijutsu. We're the lowest ranked of the noble houses. She whimpered, desperately hoping to avoid what would be certain death if they fought. Well, I can see why Madara would find these bloodlines useful, the blonde thought out loud, as he casually sidestepped out of the way as the 2 boys once again began a relentless taijutsu assault. the clones still seemed unaffected, easily weaving between each strike with practiced ease. Damn it all to hell, just die! The bald boy screamed before releasing a beam of fire, and wind at point-blank range only to hit nothing but air. How? He gasped as he felt his consciousness begin fade. Naruto stood between the two boys, a kunai in each hand buried into each. I'm not someone you want to mess with. Now girl, get out of here. I really didn't want to kill anyone, but your empire has really backed me into a corner here. The young girl nodded frantically, her eyes widening in horror at the state of her teammates, and fear that she would be next. Are they going to be alright? The brunette asked, her voice shaking, unsure if she could take the answer, or if she would even be given one. Well, he might, Naruto replied, pointing to the silver-haired boy. Naruto felt a little sorry for the brunette. He could see that unlike the others, the young kunoichi was rather kind and cared about her companions. He will need some medical attention soon though. As for Baldy, I'm sorry but it's too late for him, the clone said calmly. Now before I let you go, promise me you will not attack me or do anything this reckless again. Do that and you have my word that I will let you go. Oh, and make sure you tell anyone you see that if they attack me or anyone I care about, I will kill them. I will bring this empire to its knees if I have to, he added, his face deadly serious. All right, I promise, I'll do as you ask, she said, cowering slightly. See that you do. Now you better hurry if you want to save that teammate of yours, the clone said before dispelling. Naruto's other clone also left one member of the team it faced alive, killing one and wounding the others severely, giving the survivor the same task of warning the others not to attack. Once both groups were soundly defeated, the original Naruto let out a sigh. It doesn't look like there are any more teams heading to attack us, for now at least, he informed the group, scanning the area one last time just to be sure. The group of civilians all collectively breathed a sigh of relief. Most of the civilians had branched off from Naruto's group, and several small groups were just now coming to the edge of the forest. Naruto hoped they would be alright, but he didn't have the time to babysit all of them. He was more concerned with getting his friends, and the few who had chosen to join him, to safety. Naruto's group was not too far away from the edge of the open field now. They could see the next area growing closer with each passing minute. Large stone-like walls that rose, forming a maze-like path of tunnels and trenches. This offered both good cover for their journey and many excellent places to be ambushed. When they came near the end of the large open field, they were given a slight shock. Large patches of deep sand were scattered across their path. Not enough to bother anyone who could use chakra to move over the top with ease, but enough to slow down the civilians. Where did all this sand come from? There is nothing about it on the map, Naruto pondered as the group began weaving around the large sand traps. You can't expect him to put everything in there, you know. Maps are rarely 100% accurate, Tenji said, patting the blonde on the shoulder to get him to stop worrying. Naruto nodded and folded the map back up before placing it in his pocket. Yeah, I guess you're probably right. Still, something about it seems off to me, he said, casting a short glance to the nearest pit. Well, I can't sense anyone nearby. At least nobody that is heading this way. If it was a trap, I would have sensed it by now, Karen said confidently. There was no way she would miss a surprise attack. She had been using her sensory abilities periodically since they left the site where the tower once stood. I guess it's just kind of odd. Everything else on the map has been so perfect that missing these sand traps seems odd, Naruto reasoned. On that point, Karen had to agree. The map given to them by Shugo had been highly accurate up to this point, even indicating areas of the forest that had been thicker or were known to be the sites of large predatory beasts. Maybe he didn't think that they would pose much of a problem to us. Maybe, Naruto said with a sigh. The more he thought about it, the more likely that seemed. Still, there was just something off about such an obvious gap in the information. It was almost as if the sand dunes had appeared after the map was drawn. That's also a possibility, he told himself to shake off the uneasy feeling. The next section was a slow ascent up a rocky hillside within the confines of a deep maze of trenches. Naruto was grateful that the quickest path had already been marked, meaning that even for civilians they were making decent time. Every so often, however, they would run into another large sandpit, often in large areas where multiple paths would come together. It was mid-afternoon when the group began to slow down, with Naruto eventually bringing everyone to a halt in front of a large cave. Is there something wrong? Ray asked, earning some worried glances from the other civilians. No, we're going to rest here, Naruto answered, trying to reassure the group. But it's still light out. We can go on for a few hours yet, a well-dressed man said, eager to keep going. I think Naruto might have a point. It would be better for us to rest for what's left of the day. It might be safer to move under the cover of night, Ray reasoned. Well, that is one of the reasons. There is also the fact that if they are monitoring our movements, they might guess which way we are heading. I have a way for us all to travel the distance remaining in only about an hour. but I want to wait until later tonight when most of the spectators will be sleeping, Naruto suggested. Well, I'm in. If you can't get us out of here, then we're all as good as dead anyway, Tenji said casually, clearly siding with Naruto. I guess it can't really be helped. Whatever you have planned, I'm in. You may have inadvertently started a war with the Empire, but I guess that's better than death, Ray sighed. Slowly the rest of the group all came to an agreement that they would trust in Naruto's plan. While most still didn't know Naruto that well, they had to admit he was strong, maybe even strong enough to actually save their lives. The group moved into the cave, and once they were sure it was safe, set up a small camp. Naruto sat at the back of the cave with his eyes closed, quickly scanning the surrounding area for any sign of approaching threats. You don't need to do that, you know, Karen said kindly, taking a seat beside the blonde and resting her head on his shoulder. I know you have been scanning as well. I guess I just feel a little less anxious if I check myself, even if my sensory skills are nothing compared to yours, the blonde replied before softly kissing the top of her head. I can understand that. Better to be safe than sorry, the redhead said with a smile as the two cuddled up together. So are you going to tell me what your plan is, Naruto-kun? It's not much of a plan. After midnight I will create a clone to carry everyone. If we move at top speed we will make it to the southern exit well before dawn. It's a full moon tonight so the visibility won't be too bad, Naruto explained. Karen hummed, contemplating the blonde's plan. I suppose if we keep going so slowly the Empire will be able to move all their units into place to intercept us at the exit. As soon as your clones start moving it will probably be quite obvious what your plan is, she said, pointing out a potential risk. I know, but I think if we go this way I can reduce the potential casualties. There are 2 high-ranking Uchiha clan members here so I don't think we will get out of here without a fight, Naruto sighed. The blonde's face quickly became very serious as he readjusted his body so he could look the redhead in the eyes. I want you to promise me that you will do what I say when the real fighting starts. Karen looked a little confused at why Naruto would ask that of her. I don't understand. I can fight too. I'd become a lot stronger after training with you, she said quickly. She was slightly afraid that Naruto didn't think she was strong enough to fight with him. It's not about that, Karen-chan. This is a dangerous situation, and I might need to summon Kurama to help out if I need to. If that happens you will need to be as far away from here as possible, Naruto explained. If it's that dangerous then I can't leave you behind, Karen protested readily. Naruto shook his head, determined not to let Karen get involved if things became too dangerous. You have to trust that I will be fine. But I won't be able to concentrate properly if I know you could get hurt. If the top shinobi show up, you need to let me handle them myself, please. The redhead was far from pleased with the request, but upon seeing how dead set Naruto was she sighed in defeat. Fine, but don't you dare get yourself killed out there, or I will never forgive you. Don't worry, Karen-chan, it's going to take a whole lot more than a couple of wannabe dictators to take me down. I beat Madara, Kaguya and eventually Sasuke after all. After them these guys are nothing, Naruto said, flashing his boyish fox-like smile. But didn't you lose the power of the Sage of Six Paths, so it's not the same, Karen replied. She's got a point there, Naruto, Kurama added. The fox was not overly concerned with Naruto's safety. He was confident in his partner's strength, and even more so if they were working together. While he didn't want Naruto to have to rely on using him in a fight, he had to admit it had been a while since he had been summoned outside of the seal. That's true. But I could still hold my own even with just my fox cloak. Hey, if I'm lucky I might not even need Kurama's help. I've gotten a lot stronger since the war as well. So I'll be fine, believe it, Naruto said, answering both parties. Besides, I need you to keep the rest of the group safe while they get out of the arena. Karen didn't argue any further, deciding that if they were going to rest then she should get some sleep. She shuffled her position so she was using Naruto's lap as a pillow. While the content redhead slept peacefully, Naruto kept watch. Careful not to wake the sleeping beauty, he decided to send a few clones in Sage mode out of the cave to scout and keep a wide perimeter around the cave free of any intruders. He watched calmly as the orange tint the setting sun gave Todhi walls slowly faded into the silvery dull glow of the full moon, that failed to light more than the very entrance to the cave where the group had stopped. With only a few hours until Naruto and the group would make their next move, he decided to wake the sleeping redhead, softly shaking her shoulders. Karen-chan, it's time to wake up, he whispered quietly. He didn't really want to wake her, but he needed to get some sleep as well while he had the time. He couldn't help but smile as she cutely yawned and stretched out on his lap, clearly struggling to free herself from slumber. What's the time? She asked, gazing up into his cerulean eyes that were hidden in the dark to everyone but her, as the only member of the group that could use chakra. It's almost midnight. I need you to keep watch so I can get some sleep. Can you wake me in 2 hours? Naruto asked with a small yawn while settling himself back against the wall. He was far from comfortable, but that didn't bother him all that much. Comfort was something he and Karen had done without for their entire trip over the mountains, so a few hours sleeping up against stone wouldn't be unbearable. With that said though, it was still only 2 hours sleep. From Naruto's point of view, no sooner than he had closed his eyes, Karen was lightly shaking him awake. Naruto-kun, it's been 2 hours time to get up, she said quietly, waiting for a moment to see if the Jinchuriki would stir. Naruto groaned in protest. A change in plans, Karen-chan. We're not leaving for another 5-6 hours, he said half asleep, before adjusting himself against the wall. Karen smiled sadly, knowing that in his sleep-addled state he was saying things that he didn't mean. Sorry Naruto-kun, but that wasn't the deal. You need to get up so we can move on, she said, shaking him a little rougher. Naruto groaned in protest but slowly opened his eyes. I really hate you right now, he pouted. Well, that sucks, because I love you, she teased, offering the blonde her hand to help him up. Naruto smiled back, knowing that she truly meant those words. Without further delay he grabbed her hand and allowed the redhead to help him to his feet before he stole a quick kiss. Any sign of movement out there while I was asleep? He asked quickly, switching from playful to very serious. No, I have been checking every 10 minutes, but there has been nothing outside this cave for miles, the Uzumaki Kunoichi answered quickly. Naruto nodded and quickly made a clone for every member of their group, including Karen. You don't need to carry me as well, I know, but at the moment the enemy only knows that I can use chakra. We can surprise them with that later if it comes down to it, and I would rather not have them think you're a threat to them. I don't want them to target you as well, Naruto said firmly. You don't have to do that. I can protect myself just fine. I may not be as strong as you are, but I have gotten a lot stronger since we have been together. I'm much stronger than anyone we have seen so far, that's for sure. Besides, if they are trying to kill you, then they might as well be trying to kill me too, Karen replied, clearly disapproving of what she considered Naruto thinking she wasn't strong enough to fight with him. That's not it. I know you're strong, Karen-chan. I just want to keep you safe, no matter what, Naruto replied with a slightly pained expression. He never wanted to lose another person that was precious to him. He had lost his parents on the night he was born. Jiraiya had died just as he was starting to make a real name for himself in the shinobi world. Even Sasuke was gone now. Unable to compromise on his beliefs, he forced the blonde's hand. Karen still wasn't convinced. And how do you think I feel? I am no different. To me you are everything, she said honestly before her featured hardened somewhat. I will do as you say this time. You are right. If we are attacked by stronger shinobi, I will need to protect the others so we can all escape. But the Empire won't stop hunting us when we escape. So next time I will be fighting too, she demanded, the steely determination in her scarlet eyes that told the blonde that no matter how much he would argue, this was one fight he wouldn't win. Deal, Naruto replied with a bright, disarming smile that even in the dark of the cave seemed to brighten everything. Alright, no more time for discussions, time to wake everyone, he added while giving a silent signal to his clones, who stooped down and each picked one member of the group up. Unsurprisingly, this was followed by loud yells and protests that soon tuned into screams of fear and surprise as the clones and Naruto wasted no time in speeding out of the cave and out into the cool night air. Well, in terms of a surprise, that was really something else, Karen giggled from her position on the back of the clone that was closest to the real blonde. I figured it would be quicker this way. If we move at this pace we can get to the edge of the arena long before the sun comes up, Naruto replied. Then, as if to make a point, the group picked up the speed even more. Wow, I'm faster than I have ever been. All that training is really paying off, he thought while his clones attempted to calm their individual passengers. Of course, those old toads have been kicking your ass all over the countryside for months. It's hardly going to make you weaker, Kurama said with a roll of his eyes. I guess you have a point. I really need to thank Shima and Fukusuka-sensei the next time I see him, Naruto replied. So what's the plan once you exit this death arena? The fox asked. Well, if we don't go over the top, they won't think twice about chasing us down. That really only leaves us with shock and awe. Kurama grinned. Despite being a far calmer since he befriended Naruto, the giant fox still enjoyed a good bit of destruction. And if that means crushing a few Uchiha, then all the better. The grin only seemed to grow as the thin outline of the mountainous perimeter of the stadium came into view in the distance. This should be fun. Chapter 43, The Placement Trials. Point 5. Naruto and his clones sped rapidly across the countryside, the changing portions of the landscape designed to slow the contestants down and give a changing battlefield didn't affect him at all. The edge of the giant arena was gradually growing larger and larger at the edge of the horizon. Each step brought the blonde closer to their destination. The full moon illuminated the landscape, the silvery glow allowing Naruto to see easily without even needing chakra to enhance his vision. At any other time he would have considered it hauntingly beautiful. Naruto knew it was only a matter of time before the Empire would have troops to intercept him, and because of this he had been scanning the area for any shinobi that would be either approaching or moving between his group and their destination in case of an ambush. In the past hour the blonde and his clones had to change paths several times in order to avoid teams of genin-level shinobi that were obviously camping for the night. Despite the anticipation of an impending attack, it came as quite a surprise that by the time he felt any sizable foreign chakra signatures heading in his direction, they were almost at the exit. In fact, it made it an easy decision to separate from his group and go it alone. Naruto stopped as his clones changed direction, hoping to put some extra distance between them and the approaching shinobi. Alright, let's see what this empire is really made of, he thought, preparing himself for what he had to do. You gonna let me out to play? Kurama asked a little eagerly. If there was one thing that Kurama still hated above all else, it was an Uchiha, and the fact that this particular branch of the clan were directly related to Madara didn't help. Not just yet, I don't just want to defeat them. I need to humiliate them so they question whether or not they can ever defeat me. It's the only way to assure our safety for a longer period of time. They are so set on being all-powerful and hate all weakness. I think they need to experience what it feels like to be the one on the receiving end, so that they feel helpless for once, Naruto replied seriously. Isn't that a little far from your attempts to have everyone understand each other? Kurama asked. Naruto looked quite sad as he nodded his agreement. You're right, and I do want that. But I also have seen this empire in action. This won't be solved by simply talking to them. They're too set in their ways. I'm surprised you came to that realization without more prompting, the fox said, a little impressed. Naruto didn't bother responding. He could feel the approaching shinobi begin to spread out in an attempt to surround him. But then Naruto didn't really care. His first job was to give Karen and the others in his group the time to escape the area, then cause as much destruction as humanly possible, which for Naruto was quite a lot. Naruto came to a stop in a large clearing scattered with large rocks, some the size of houses. This spot looks perfect. Small tactical area. I can keep the numbers that I'm in direct contact with to a minimum if I need to, he said to himself, while running around the small area to assess any well-hidden locations. I'm shocked, you're actually thinking like a ninja, and not like, well you. Hey! Naruto yelled in indignation, completely ignoring the group of 10 Empire shinobi that was currently landing in a large radius surrounding the blonde, evidently to prevent him from escaping the area. Priority target located, one of the shinobi said, speaking into a small radio. Target seems distracted, so far unaware of our presence, he added, but then froze when he heard a voice behind his ear. Oh, I know you're here, I just don't care, Naruto said casually. The group froze in shock, none of them saw him move. Then again he didn't move. Naruto was still standing in the center of the clearing. The Naruto behind the Empire shinobi dispelled itself quickly, but the message had been sent. If Naruto wanted to, he could have killed the man already without even lifting a finger. So how are you going to do this? You going to attack? Or if you want, I can embarrass you all one at a time, Naruto said with a smirk. He didn't really want to admit it, but he was excited. He was a shinobi and this was his way of life. He loved a good fight. Oh, that's it, I'll take this guy, you guys just watch. A man with spiky silver hair said with a scowl. The silver-haired man seemed to shimmer out of existence, before reappearing behind the blonde, his fist cocked back in preparation to land a powerful blow. Naruto, while unable to follow his movements easily, still rolled forward just as the man's punch was about to hit. Phew, you're much faster than the genin I fought with your blood limit, so I'm guessing this is going to be lesson 1, huh? He said with a smile. Lesson 1? What the hell are you talking about? The silver-haired man asked. Taijutsu, Naruto yelled, his fist flying forward aimed right at his opponent's face. The silver-haired man moved at a blur, easily blocking the punch with a smirk on his face as he knew that he could match the blonde for speed. That smirk quickly turned to horrified shock, however, as he was unable to deal with the power behind Naruto's fist, jumping back as he grabbed his arm in pain. What the hell was that? Unfortunately, he didn't have enough time to dwell on that though, as Naruto continued his assault, using a rock to push off, spinning into an axe kick, forcing the silver-haired man to jump back as the blonde's legs slammed into the ground, cracking the earth beneath him. Unlike Sunade's strength that came from her precise chakra control, Naruto's strength came from the intense physical training he had been undergoing, and while not as powerful as his precious Bachan, the effect was still substantial. Knowing he couldn't stay on the defensive, the silver-haired Empire shinobi shot forward in a blur, slamming his fist into Naruto's stomach. Naruto curled over apparently in pain, only to have the blonde smile. What the hell? He asked himself as he looked down only to see his hand had been easily caught by the Jinchuriki. He quickly tried to remove his fist and jump back but found Naruto's grasp was too tight and couldn't free himself. Sorry, no more running, Naruto said calmly. He briefly saw the flash of fear in the man's eyes before smashing the silver-haired man right through the nearest rock. Well, that's one down, he added in a bored tone. The remaining members of the group tensed. Once more they were shown that they were in over their heads. One member down, suspected Kia. Request for backup, a man with brown hair said into his radio. You don't need to bother, they were watching that little fight. Besides, I can already feel a much larger group approaching, Naruto said, taking a seat atop the collapsed rubble of the stone used to pummel his previous opponent. Wordlessly, the Imperial shinobi came to an agreement. The only way they would be able to beat Naruto was to attack as a team. 3 taijutsu specialists converged on the lounging blonde, each landing a perfect hit. At least they thought they did. Before the thought of victory could take hold, Naruto burst into smoke. He was a clone, they all asked simultaneously. 3 more Narutos appeared. Obviously they had been hinged as stones on the ground, and each with a Rasengan in hand. Each clone impaled 1 target each, right into the ground that crumbled away into a small sand pit that effectively swallowed the now deceased trio. Well, that's odd, the 3 Narutos said together, surprised to see yet another sand pit. Did they build this stadium on top of a desert or something? He asked the remaining 6 shinobi who had surrounded the trio of blondes. So, am I going to have to kill all of you, or are you just going to admit that you're not strong enough and run away? Naruto's answer came in the form of his opponents racing through hand seals. Our orders are absolute. We are to kill the priority target and return his head to Gahara-sama, they chanted in an almost uniform fashion. Naruto's cloned face vaulted as a cascade of jutsu descended upon them. The attacks seemed to combine together and exploded outwards, scorching the land of all signs of life. They looked around hopeful for any signs that the blonde had be able to evade their attack. Did we get him? One asked hopefully. Sorry, but not quite. Haven't you figured out how this works yet? Naruto's voice claimed, echoing from various directions, meaning that they couldn't guess his exact location. No? Okay, fine, I'll tell you, the blonde scoffed in good spirits. I knew you were coming from the start, and drew you in here where I quickly set up my clones to trap you here. My real body is long gone, so you're not even here. Akunoichi asked, with thinly veiled rage. Yeah, I left as soon as I was sure there were no Uchiha in your little welcoming party. I knew I had to do something to make your superiors take me seriously, the various clones in the area explained. So why are you telling us this? You can obviously kill us whenever you want, I can see that clearly enough. You have had us beat from the moment we surrounded you, the sane Kunoichi said. Her muscles were tense while she was carefully scanning the area to assess where the final blow might come from. That's simple. For one, I know that the leaders of this empire are watching right now. These exams get broadcast all over the empire, so your superiors can pick who they want in their squads. I also know that they probably sent some middle-ranked shinobi to test me, but the truth is, I doubt even a team of Jounin-level ninja could trouble me anymore. Man, I'd bet I could so kick Kakashi-sensei ass now. Naruto chuckled, fondly remembering the old Team 7. Who the hell are you? There's no way you're just some civilian. The Kunoichi demanded, her voice cracking while several of her team began to back away in hopes of escaping. I'm a ninja from Konoha, and I just want to live a peaceful life. But I won't stand by while your empire treats its people like slaves. I have no interest in going to war with the empire, but I also know the empire has no interest in letting me live. You kind of have me backed up against a wall at the moment. I have to fight, Naruto answered firmly. Where is this Konoha? I have never heard of it. Do they have other shinobi like you? The Kunoichi asked, searching for any information that the empire might find useful before her time was up. Naruto knew exactly what she was trying to do. Trust me, Konoha is a long way away, and has no interest in the empire. That's all you're going to get from me. One member of the group of Imperial shinobi arrived at the edge of the clearing. However, rather than make a glorious escape as he had planned, he collapsed, a kunai punching its way through his torso covered in and propelled by Futon chakra. This set in motion a chain of events that started with the remaining 5 shinobi taking off in different directions, hoping that they would get lucky. However, Naruto's clones effortlessly intercepted the fleeing figures, striking each one down with ease, appearing seamlessly from where they had been camouflaged against the stone before lazily dispelling themselves. Meanwhile, impossible! He just took out 10 of our search and destroy squad officers. With only clones. One of the judges of the placement trials yelled in shock. And where is this Konoha? There is no village with that name in any map I have ever seen, another said, clearly stunned. Jolie-sama, Gahara-sama, where is he now? The first judge asked. He's approaching the main group of our military sent to intercept the target. This should be much more interesting. There is almost 200 shinobi out there going up against one. I wonder what he has planned this time, Gahara answered, barely able to contain her excitement. Perhaps we should go take a closer look, mother. If there is even the slightest chance that he could actually end up victorious from this encounter, only our elite forces will be able to deal with him. As much as I hate to dirty my hands on a peasant, we might even have to get involved ourselves, Jolie suggested. You don't have to ask me twice. I'm more than eager to see what Naruto-kun can do in person. Tetsu-chan, let's go, Gahara replied, standing up and quickly making her way out of the main observation room. Elsewhere, the real Naruto was quickly speeding across the arena. He knew that his clones carrying his friends would soon be reaching the edge of the arena where they would meet up with Shugo. He also knew that if he could deal with the small army he was approaching, that the Empire would be hard-pressed finding the numbers needed chase after him. Your clones dealt with that last group quite well, Naruto-kun. I don't even think that lazy friend of yours could have planned that any better. Well done, Kurama mused. Thanks, but I'm no way near Shikamaru's level when it comes to planning and strategy. Anyway, the real show starts now. I promised you shock and awe, didn't I? The Jinchuriki said as he created 4 clones, 2 on each side that separated so there was about 20 feet between each of them as they ran in a line. It was a rather surreal scene for Naruto. In front of him was a large group of shinobi approaching in groups of 10 to 20. It was similar, yet somehow different from the last time he was faced with the same situation. Last time his opponents were all white setsu, and he had the rest of the shinobi army to back him up if something went wrong. I don't think they're going to stop and chat, Naruto. Whatever you have planned, you should do it soon, Kurama sighed. Yeah, don't worry, this will be over quickly. Can't play games with this many, Naruto replied as he and his clones began forming hand seals. They all simultaneously slammed their hands to the ground, forming a massive wall of smoke, bringing the approaching army to a momentary halt. When the smoke cleared, each of Naruto's clones was standing atop a giant boss-class toad. Naruto, on the other hand, had both Fukusaku and Shima sitting on his shoulders. Well, this is a fine mess you've gotten yourself into, Naruto-chan, Fukusaku said from his perch as the orange marks forming around his eyes indicated that the blonde was entering sage mode. So I take it this is the Empire you told us Abu, Shima guessed. Yeah. I guess they found out that someone outside of their direct control could use chakra, so they set a little trap for me. So far it hasn't worked out so well for them, Naruto explained. I see. Naruto-chan, where's Karen-chan? Shouldn't she be here with you? Shima asked, wondering about the kunoichi she had helped train. She's fine. A small group of civilians trusted me enough to join me. I asked her to stay with them and some of my clones for their protection, Naruto replied. Is this so, or did you just not want her to face this? Fukusaku asked, already suspecting the answer. Maybe, the blonde admitted. But it doesn't matter right now. Either way, we have to stop the Empire here, put enough fear into them so that they will never come after us again, Naruto said. Let's do this. He cheered and the 4 giant boss summons launched into the air. Gamakichi and Gamabunta both spewed out a jet of flames over the first few waves of Empire shinobi. Gamaken thumped his big shield to the ground, sending ripples through the earth, forming a massive swamp enveloping a large section of the approaching army. Well, that's more impressive than Erosenen's swamp of the underworld. Gamahiro drew his 2 giant katana. Channeling Futon chakra through their blades, he used them to send numerous blades of wind onto the approaching army. Each strike would form a deep scar on the landscape, continuing on for miles. By the time the giant toads landed, the army was in complete disarray. Those that were able to protect themselves from the ninjutsu assault had lost all sense of order in their ranks. I'm guessing it's our turn now, Naruto-chan? Fukusaku asked, seeming unaffected by the destruction his clan had just wrought on their summoner's enemies. Yeah, let's go, Naruto said, charging forward while all 3 were racing through hand seals. I never tired this before, so I hope it works. Senpo, Gomen! Naruto spat forth a powerful jet of air that combined with toad oil provided by Fukusaku, and fire from Shima. The 3 elements combined, creating a massive wave of boiling oil. Anything that came into contact with the jutsu was boiled or combusted into flames as it was enveloped by the oncoming tsunami. Well, if the Empire didn't consider you a believable threat before, they sure will now, Kurama mused. The fox had been half hoping that he would have been summoned. The feel of the Biju's chakra held enough killing intent to make veteran shinobi weak at the knees. After less than a minute, the result of the battle was clear. Of the 200 shinobi that had been sent to eliminate Naruto, less than a quarter had survived, and those that were uninjured knew the chances of survival against Naruto and his summons was less than favorable. You never can do things the easy way, can you, Gaki? Gamabunta boomed, as the boss toad assessed the damage they had caused. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck in embarrassment. I guess not, sorry Bunta. Don't apologize, I mean thanks to you our lives ain't boring, Gamakichi said with a smirk. Thanks guys. I mean it, all of you. I would have had to use my Biju cloak if I wanted to deal with this many without all of your help, Naruto admitted. That's fine, Uzumaki-sama. I may be clumsy, but if ever you require my assistance, do not hesitate to call on any of us, Gamaken said, performing a rather awkward bow before he and the other giant toads disappeared. What about you guys? The big fish are almost here, but I can handle it myself if you both want to head on home, Naruto asked, talking to the two toad elders. Nonsense, Naruto-chan, we will stay and fight alongside ya, Fukusuka said proudly. Naruto couldn't help but smile at the loyalty the two had shown him since Jiraiya had passed away. Even if they couldn't fuse with him like they were able to with his master, they still were able to fight together almost flawlessly. I really have to thank you guys. Because of your training I'm twice as strong as I was before I left the elemental nations, the young Jinchuriki said with a smile, glad that the survivors of the Toad's attack had no desire to keep fighting. Naruto sat down in meditation while he felt one last, yet much smaller group approach. Summoning so many boss-class summons was quite a drain on reserves, even for Naruto. 5 minutes later he was forced to quickly jump out of the way as a blade of wind smashed into the rock he had been sitting on. Oh, what fantastic reaction time, and he caused all this destruction. I can't wait to play with him, Gaara said in a sultry, half-seductive voice, her long white hair blowing behind her in the breeze. So I take it you're the ones in charge? Naruto asked, careful not to look them in the eyes. He could see from his periphery the blood red of a Sharingan active in the smaller of the two women. Maybe. But judging from how effortlessly you dispatched our men, I would say you have been the one in charge, Gaara replied flirtatiously. Naruto, still being relatively dense in these matters despite his experiences with Karen, didn't catch on to the inflections of her voice. You sent Genin, Chunin and low-level Jounin to fight me. Most S-rank shinobi could deal with that, he replied. That's right, you claim you're a shinobi from somewhere called Konoha. Where is that? Jolie asked demandingly. I don't feel like telling, Naruto replied, smirking slightly at how he had clearly gotten under the younger Uchiha's skin. What was that? Look me in the eyes and say that, you disrespectful worm. Jolie scowled. No thanks, I would rather not have you attempt to use your Sharingan on me. While I'm in sage mode I doubt any of your normal genjutsu will affect me. But I'm guessing its Tsukuyomi would probably still work, Naruto said casually, shocking the Uchiha present. It had been a calculated move. Naruto wanted them to know he knew about their ocular abilities. The more they thought he knew the better, because it would make them second-guess themselves. Well, it seems you have us at a disadvantage, Naruto-kun. You know so much about us, yet your skills remain a mystery, Gaara said sweetly. To Gaara the blonde was becoming more and more fascinating by the minute. I have an idea, let's end this fighting. A powerful young man like you should be working with us, not fighting against us. With the show you've put on since the second trial started, you would be a very valuable asset and a desirable ally, she purred. Naruto couldn't help but feel slightly uncomfortable under Gaara's gaze. Sorry Uchiha-hime, but I don't like the way your empire operates. I'm going to leave this place and hopefully go back to my quiet life. If the empire leaves me alone, then we won't have a problem. Funny, you think you're actually leaving this place alive? We're going to kill you where you stand. Jolie scowled. The surviving Empire shinobi seemed to gain some confidence now that two of the strongest members of the royal family were there. I really just wanted to live in peace. I never wanted any of this, I hope you remember that. Naruto sighed while readying himself for an attack as he was slowly being surrounded. Such a shame to let such a fine specimen die. But at least I will still get the pleasure of watching you bleed, Gaara replied with a small pout, thrusting her palm forward, releasing a devastating blast of wind. Naruto had to jump to avoid the blast, which was followed by a large ball of fire blown by the younger Uchiha. Predictably their aim was perfect. Naruto had to create a clone to pull himself out of the way. No hand seals, she has some crazy powerful abilities with wind chakra, Naruto thought, a little shocked. As he landed, two shinobi with the swift release bloodline appeared behind him and drove their fists into his back, knocking Naruto forward. Naruto rolled back to his feet just as the two were ready to descend on him, each with a tanto. They reacted quickly as Naruto threw a punch in retaliation, using their speed to avoid the strike without changing their momentum. However, despite missing his hit, both shinobi were blasted away, their bodies flying away like rag dolls. What was that? He missed, I'm sure of it, Jolie whispered to her group. Tetsu-chan, perhaps it would be best if you deal with him. He somehow has information on our clan's abilities, and we need some extra time to gather more information on his. If you command the remaining forces here, then you should be able to win. Gahara said, her interest piqued even further by this strange new ability. Taijutsu that doesn't require to even land a hit. What a brilliant technique. Tetsu sighed while stepping forward in front of the two Uchiha Kunoichi. I really hoped that I wouldn't be the one who had to do this. The rust-haired man sighed. There was little doubt that he was upset that things had turned out this way. He was cursing the day he had stepped foot into the small village where he met Naruto and Karen. Not because he was scared, it was more to do with the fact he had liked them both. Naruto nodded. He had no desire to kill the man who he had befriended during his time in the village. I figured that you're the one that turned me in. But I have to ask, how did you know I could use chakra? I kept all my chakra suppressed, he asked, genuinely curious. It's the way you hold yourself, completely confident like nothing could ever harm you. And let's just say there's this feeling you give off that screams that you're powerful, Tetsu admitted unashamedly. I see, Naruto mused, still not completely convinced. That said, he could also tell that Tetsu was a lot stronger than any of the other soldiers he had faced so far. Then tell me, do you think you can defeat me? He asked while the soldiers surrounding him tensed waiting for the first move. You're certainly strong. The longer the fight draws out, the more it favors you, but nobody is unbeatable. Regardless of what I think about you personally, my orders are absolute. You have to die here, Tetsu said, drawing a small blade, about half the length of a kunai, in each hand. A quick glance to a few of his soldiers passed on a wordless message, and they started racing through hand seals. Pillars of iron shot out of the ground around the blonde, trapping him inside a large cage. The bars then shot spikes inwards to impale Naruto where he stood. Fukusuka-sensei, I think your water jutsu would be best here, Naruto said calmly. If he knew that if used his Biju cloak the sharp spikes wouldn't even be able to harm him. But he knew that wasn't necessary with the two elder toad sages at his side. Fukusuka didn't need to be told though, as he had already begun the preparations. The small green toad spat a stream of highly compressed water combined with senjutsu that sliced right through the iron beams, effectively ending the jutsu. Those little frogs are powerful, Jolie said intently. They're toads, Gahara said in a matter-of-fact tone. You saw the giant ones before. The shape of the body proves they're not frogs. Naruto-kun obviously has a summoning contract with toads, not frogs, she explained. What's the difference? One of the younger princess's bodyguards replied in defense of his master. More of a difference than there is between you and slime, Gahara smirked. Seeing his first plan backfire magnificently, Tetsu had to act quickly, using the small blades to cut the palms of his hands ever so slightly before tossing them at Naruto. Naruto quickly weaved through the two attacks and charged forward. The rusty-haired shinobi ordered the others to stand back and ran forward to meet the blonde halfway, swiping his hands out in front of him, sending two small arcs of blood towards his target. Naruto ignored the blood as he was focused on Tetsu, but this proved to be costly. The blood particles in the air solidified, forming a whip. Realizing what could prove to be a costly mistake, Naruto had to jump back quickly, narrowly avoiding having the blood whips tear him apart. That was close, he said, letting out a small breath as he touched the small yet deep cut on his cheek. Gahara was close to salivating at the sight of the blonde's blood. It's not every day you see someone escape from that technique, even if you know it's coming. Is it wrong of me to hope the Naruto-kun lives through this? She pondered, biting her lip as the cut on his cheek closed itself before her very eyes. Regeneration, she gasped in excitement. Oh, think of how much fun I could have with someone like him. Tetsu continued to use his whips, forcing Naruto back, towards the edge of the perimeter created by the other Empire shinobi. The two closest saw this as their chance, formed two floating bright orbs that flew towards Naruto's back. The other created a large blade of iron that shot forward, intending to impale the blonde. Naruto sensed the spike in chakra, but waited until both attacks were almost on top of him before sidestepping them both as they crashed into Tetsu's blood whips. Well done, Naruto-chan. Perfect situational awareness, Fukusuka said, praising his young charge. Not bad at all, Naruto, Tetsu said with a sad smile. Unfortunately, it's game over. Naruto seemed confused by this. It is? Yes. I'm afraid that this fight was decided the moment I cut you, Tetsu said. Seeing Naruto's blank, clearly confused expression, Tetsu decided to elaborate. When my blood whips cut you, it allowed my blood to enter your body. From there it has quickly spread and now sits within each of your vital organs. At any moment I can end your life. What a pathetic ending. Then again, he was a fool to think he could stand against us. He was certainly the strongest person to ever stand up against the Empire, but he spent too much time holding back and it killed him. What a fool, Jolie scoffed. I'm sorry it has to end this way, Naruto. Tetsu sighed, holding his hand out before clenching his fist. A few seconds passed and nothing happened. A confused look crossed Tetsu's face. What the? How are you still standing? Your organs should be torn to shreds by now. Well, it was a good plan, I'll give you that. It's too bad that foreign chakra, much like poisons, can't live in my body. They're destroyed before they can ever threaten my life, Naruto said with a carefree tone. What? How is that possible? Tetsu stammered. I have a little help. My partner keeps me alive and healthy, Naruto said cryptically. You mean those toads? Tetsu asked, two short swords forming in his hands. Not exactly, although the senjutsu they taught me helps a lot. It speeds up my already accelerated healing several times over, Naruto admitted. Damn, looks like I'm going to have to do this the old way. His wounds heal almost immediately, and he's immune to internal attacks. Just what type of Kekkei Genkai does he have? Tetsu wondered as he slid into a Kenjutsu stance. Well, seeing as my friends have escaped the stadium and are now well out of harm's way, I guess it wouldn't hurt to show you a little more. But I can't hang around here all day, Naruto mused, only tensing slightly as Tetsu charged. Tetsu didn't make it halfway to Naruto before his attack was intercepted. I really hoped you wouldn't be here, Tetsu, Shugo sighed, blocking both of the blood swords with a katana. At the same time, a small group of the rebel Uchiha's allies were intercepting the other Empire shinobi, clearly catching them by surprise. Tetsu and the Uchiha split apart, and Shugo came to land next to Naruto, giving him a welcoming nod. You guys sure took your time. I was half wondering if you were really going to let me fight them all myself, Naruto said with a smile. I was kind of hoping to see you go all out. But you were too busy buying time for your friends, weren't you? Shugo admitted. Guilty, the blonde admitted. Shugo smirked at how calm his newfound ally was. He had been watching every move Naruto had made and was highly impressed that his initial prediction about his strength had been so far accurate. One thing does confuse me though. Really, what's that? Naruto asked. What's the deal with all the sand you have been spreading around the arena? The Uchiha queried. It's not me, I don't know anything about it, Naruto admitted. A thought quickly came to him, and he began doing some math in his head. Hey Kurama, you don't think it's... The fox didn't need to answer. At that moment, large beams of sand shot out of the ground from all over the stadium. For the first time, even the two Uchiha looked scared. The sand was quickly converging together, and a powerful chakra began to pour out of it. Shikaku's back, and it looks like that crazy Tanuki has come looking for you, Naruto, Kurama said with a small smirk, knowing that the return of the Ichibi would be, if nothing else, entertaining. Chapter 44. The Placement Trials. Point 6. Naruto stared apprehensively at the giant ball of sand that was currently converging into the Ichibi, Shikaku. Why the hell is Shikaku here? He asked in shock, completely ignoring the almost terrified looks that were being shared collectively by the Empire shinobi as well as the blonde's newfound allies respectively. Shikaku was always going to be the first Biju to reform in this world after being freed from the Akatsuki ceiling. He only has one tail and much less chakra than the rest of us. It's only natural that he would need less time to recover, Kurama answered eagerly. Well, that part at least makes sense, I guess. But shouldn't Shikaku be reforming in the desert somewhere near Suna? Naruto questioned, still struggling to come to terms with what he was witnessing. That is Shikaku's preferred stomping ground, but don't forget that you have a portion of his chakra inside you as well. It's possible that may be the reason why he is reforming here. Either way, you're going to have to get ready for a fight, the fox replied, resting his head on his paws while making sure to keep watch on what was happening outside the seal. Why? The Biju shouldn't be attacking me. We came to an understanding, Naruto declared. Yes, that's true. But when a Biju reforms, it takes multiple steps. Unfortunately, it's not until the very end that our consciousness returns. Once that crazy Tanuki's body is formed, he will go out of control, Kurama explained as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. I still have to deal with these Empire ninja as well. How long do you think I have before it becomes dangerous to ignore Shikaku? I don't know, I have never seen any Biju reform before. But if I had to guess, then I would say you have a few minutes before he goes out of control. Naruto's side knew that he couldn't leave a rampaging Biju alone, which meant that he had to deal with the Empire shinobi quickly. His gaze hardened as he turned his attention back to Gaara and Jolie. The two Uchiha commanders were gazing in shock at the large ball of sand, hardly believing their eyes. In a few minutes, that lump of sand is going to transform into a creature of amazing destructive power. So I can't waste any more time playing with you, the blonde said firmly, effectively reminding every shinobi in the area of exactly why they were here in the first place. Idiot. You should have used that sand as your only chance to run. You didn't even try to use it as a distraction and attack us? Just what kind of fool are you? Jolie asked stiffly. Around them, her bodyguards were in combat with soldiers that had sided with Shugo, who was currently face to face with Tetsu, his katana clashing against blades formed from the rusty-haired shinobi's blood. Naruto remained unfazed by the taunting. He had gotten much worse in the past. "If I attacked you and defeated you like that, it wouldn't serve my purpose at all," he said with a small smirk, as he gathered some more natural energy for his sage mode while he had the chance. "You desire a fair fight. Well, I'm more than willing to give you anything you want, Naruto-kun," Gaara said with a flirtatious drawl that seemed to go right over Naruto's head, completely unaffected by the attempt. Naruto meanwhile wasted no more time, rocketing forward, his fist drawn. But just as he got within range of Gaara, he quickly jumped back. "What's wrong, Naruto-kun? I thought we were going to play," she teased, licking her lips hungrily. "Did you guys feel that?" Naruto asked the small toad sitting on his shoulders. "I sure did, Naruto-chan. The young lady can freely manipulate wind ta do or bidin," Fukusuka replied. He was reluctantly impressed by the Uchiha princess. "She uses wind in a similar way that Gaara uses sand. That could be a problem," the blonde thought before quickly rolling out of the way as a long blade of wind shot from around Gaara, forming a thin yet deep laceration in the ground where Naruto had been standing just a second earlier. Gaara's assault was relentless. Each time Naruto stopped for a second, a new barrage of wind would descend upon him, forcing him to run. "You need to counter the wind, Naruto-chan. A katan jutsu should easily overpower pure futon manipulation," Shima suggested. "I don't know any katan jutsu. In fact, I still only know futon ninjutsu. I'm going to need some help here," the blonde admitted. "That's alright, Naruto-chan, we can help ya, but we're going to have to fix your limited knowledge of jutsu once this is over. Even if you lost the ability to use the senjutsu of 6 paths, you should still have the ability to use all of the elements," Fukusuka sighed. It was Shima, however, that supplied the fire to counter Gaara's wind blades. A powerful wide wall of flames spread out between them and sped towards the two Uchiha princesses. Jolie and Gaara were forced to jump back to avoid the senjutsu-powered flames, splitting apart as they did so. Both Uchiha began racing through head seals, and in perfect sync each created a large dragon, one of wind and the other of flames, that circled around the blonde before they combined together. In a perfect collaboration that created a giant dragon of white-hot flames that scorched the earth around the blonde as it continued to circle him, forming a dome of flames. "If he doesn't suffocate from the loss of air, he will be burned to a crisp in a matter of seconds," Jolie said with a smirk. What she didn't expect was a massive pillar of mud, water, and wind to shoot up into the sky that opened up to show Naruto and the Toad Elders perfectly fine. How did he break out of that collaboration? The circling flames should have sucked the oxygen out from his lungs before he even knew what was happening, she gasped. "He collaborates with the summoned toads. They're powerful. He's also somehow gathering chakra from nature to greatly enhance his strength," Gaara explained, a massive smile on her face. "I haven't felt this alive in years. He truly is magnificent," she declared as the wind around her began to pick up, forming what looked like a mini tornado that cloaked her body, her long white hair flailing behind her. She shot forward in a blur, the wind propelling her faster. Naruto at first thought of blocking her strike, but then thought better of it. He knew firsthand the destructive nature of wind, so instead he narrowly dodged the attack. He wanted to keep the distance tight between them so he could counter, so he waited until the last second to move, rolling his body to the side as she passed him. Even with the Sharingan, she didn't have time to counter the lightning-quick reactions Naruto had from his use of his Biju cloak. Once behind the white-haired Uchiha, he casually kicked her away before he realized the extent of the damage her wind cloak had done. He has several deep cuts on his arms, a gash along his cheek, and the right leg of his pants was torn to shreds when he kicked her. Fortunately, his wounds were already rapidly healing. "That's dangerous. It's a little like Agigi's lightning armor. But it trades some of the speed for the ability to cut anything that it touches into ribbons," Naruto said analytically while wiping the excess blood from his face as it healed. He didn't have any more time to rest as a large spectral arm came crashing down, ready to crush him where he stood. He had to act quickly, creating a clone to throw him out of harm's way before spinning to face his attacker. Jolie was standing shrouded in a dark skeleton with a semi-humanoid face. "Susanoo," Shima said, a little surprised at this. "I guess it's not a surprise that you have the Mangekyo Sharingan," Naruto said calmly. "I've heard about the way your family practices, pitting you up against your family in a fight to the death, so it's no surprise that some of you have those eyes. You know far too much about our clan," Jolie said with a scowl. A large sword forming in each hand of the large spectral skeleton. At the same time, Gaara was picking herself up and admiring the handiwork of her futon cloak. The fact that Naruto's wounds had finished healing with only the light traces of blood on clean skin as evidence excited her. She wanted to watch him heal next time. She was also aware that if the wind didn't lessen the blow from Naruto's kick, she would probably be dead. "Are we getting to the main course so soon?" I wanted to play for a little longer, she pouted, but her eyes too slowly morphed into her own Mangekyo Sharingan. Things are getting pretty serious now, the blonde thought, now being extra careful not to look either Uchiha in the eyes. Fukusuka-sensei, Shima, I think you should head back to Myobokuzen now, he said, his body stiff as he waiting for any subtle sign that either might attack. But Naruto-chan, it's too dangerous, Shima declared. It's alright, I'm not strong enough alone to beat them both like this. At least not easily, and I don't have any more time to test myself, Naruto said, kneeling down so the two toads could easily hop off his shoulders. What is he doing? Gaara wondered while silently signaling to Jolie behind the blonde's back. Be careful, Naruto-chan, summon me again when you get home, we still have a lot of training to do, Fukusuka declared. Both toads gave a short wave before they both disappeared in a puff of smoke. At that same moment the two large blades from Jolie's Susanoo descended on where the blonde remained crouching, and on the opposite side of black flames descended on their target. Neither attack would come close to hitting him. A massive burst of chakra preceded two large yellow claws grabbing both the blades of Susanoo and blocking the black flames from Gaara's Amaterasu. Naruto slowly stood covered in the golden chakra of his Biju cloak. He felt stronger and faster than ever before. The only thing that could compare was when he was in his six paths mode. Amazing. That's right, by increasing your speed and strength without my chakra, it greatly improved your ability to use my chakra, Kurama said proudly. What jutsu is this? Jolie asked. For the first time in years, she was feeling intimidated, even scared. The other fights had also stopped the pressure that Naruto's chakra exerted felt crushing. They had never experienced anything like it before. It dwarfed even the strongest of the Empire, and the large beast that had almost formed. What kind of monster is he? Tetsu asked, ignoring the smirk that seemed to be spreading on Shugo's face. The kind that will be able to change this empire for the better. Can you see that now, Tetsu? Don't you think putting our faith in someone that would fix our mistakes is better than the way things are run at the moment? Shugo asked. What I think doesn't matter, I have a duty, and I will fulfill that until the end. The real question is, why are you siding with him? What about your family? Tetsu replied angrily. You mean the family that forced me to kill my own brother? The family that thought I was worthless because I did not appear to have our dojutsu? But you know what, they were wrong. Shugo replied, his black eyes turned red and the telltale marks of a fully developed Sharingan. Tetsu's eyes widened. Since when? Since I was 5, I just didn't let anyone know. I was the youngest of our generation to awaken the Sharingan. I just never let anyone know, Shugo replied, his eyes hardening as he found that blocking his friend's attacks was now effortless, like he moved in slow motion. I wanted to know how good I could become without needing to use these eyes, but that changes now. I'm ready to make a stand against everything this empire has done. So when I beat you all those years ago, you weren't even trying? Tetsu asked incredulously. Not really, I was always the black sheep of the family. They would also allow me to get away with a lot more if they didn't consider me to be a real threat, the Uchiha rebel explained. Tetsu had to admit he had a point. The higher your rank in the empire, the more eyes were on you. Shugo had found a position where he was in contact with top members of the empire without having direct influence on anyone important. He had the perfect role to fly under the radar, gathering supporters without raising any suspicion, which led to the 20 shinobi that were in combat around them. That's just the allies he has with him here. There's no telling just how many allies he has within our ranks that aren't ready to expose themselves, the blood wielder realized. Meanwhile, both Uchiha Kunoichi were struggling to deal with Naruto. His cloak was acting as the perfect buffer for any attack that either Kunoichi was able to throw at him. Jolie's Susanoo had been effectively cancelled out, however she soon found that it would be detrimental to allow herself to allow the spectral figure to disappear. Up to this point Naruto hadn't moved a muscle, he simply allowed the extendable arms of chakra to swat at the two Uchiha princesses, effectively keeping them on the defensive. This changed however as Gaara formed two massive tornadoes to which Jolie added fire. Naruto knew that even in his current state he wouldn't be able to withstand something like that. He waited until the last moment when the spiraling infernos were almost upon him before making his move. Even with their Mangekyo Sharingans, Gaara and Jolie could only just follow his movement with their eyes. Before they knew it, Naruto was behind Jolie, his fist buried into the back of her Susanoo, sending the younger Uchiha crashing to the ground, tumbling quickly towards their own jutsu. Gaara reacted at the last second and used a futon jutsu to stop her before she ended up caught in their flaming tornadoes. Gaara was now starting to realize just what she was messing with. Naruto was more than capable of defeating both her and her daughter with relative ease, a prospect which both frightened and excited the albino Uchiha. A loud primal roar drew everyone's attention away from their fights and to the giant ball of sand that now looked like a semi-formed monster. This isn't good, Naruto realized as the beast began to thrash about, sending waves of sand across the field, tearing apart the landscape. I'd hoped we would have more time. What the hell is going on? Jolie asked as another powerful screech shook the ground, shocking everyone except Naruto. Naruto sighed and closed his eyes as the black marks on his chakra cloak began to spread and his chakra thickened until he had the appearance of wearing a sage robe made entirely of chakra. Fleck of golden flame like chakra flicked at the edges of the cloak. No more playing around. Let's do this, Kurama, he yelled before slamming his fists to the ground. A second later, Naruto stood atop a glowing Kurama, his 9 tails waving around eagerly behind him. It's good to be outside again, Kurama said as his attention turned to the rampaging Ichibi. Shikaku, it's always a pleasure when I get to put you in your place, even if you're not fully awake yet. Naruto hopped off of the fox's head, allowed the Biju to take care of his brother. Now to deal with you too, WH. What the hell are you? Jolie stammered, backing up slowly. Someone who you shouldn't have tried to kill, Naruto said as 2 chakra claws rose from his shoulders, forming a raisin shuriken in each hand. I should be able to use all the elements, that's what Fukusuka said. But I've never tried without the Biju helping me out, and now isn't the best time to try. I guess I'll just stick with Futon for now. He threw both spinning discs of chakra at the 2 Uchiha, who had no choice but dodge. We need to retreat. This isn't a fight we can win, Goera admitted as Naruto began forming several more of the wind-powered Rasengan variants. Jolie was less than impressed with that declaration. I'm not a coward who will run away from some ill-bred piece of trash, she declared. Don't be a fool, you claim to have better eyes than mine, yet you can't even see that he's been toying with us from the start. We need to escape. If we don't, we will die, Gaara said in an urgent whisper, unwilling to take her eyes off the blonde in case he moved again. Once more the Raisin Shuriken came flying at the pair. They jumped in the same direction, but before they landed, Naruto was right behind them, a Rasengan in hand. Gaara was the first to react, creating a small bubble of air pressure between her and Jolie to send them rocketing in different directions. Neither landed gracefully, but they were saved from being impaled by Naruto's jutsu. How much chakra does this guy have? He's been going non-stop for hours now, and it hasn't even made a dent. It's like staring at a never-ending well of chakra. I hate to admit it, but maybe Ka-san is right. It's going to take more than the 2 of us to beat this guy. Damn it, where did he come from? This makes no sense, Jolie thought as she pulled herself to her feet, glaring daggers at the blonde, who was momentarily distracted by the fox and Tanuki that were currently destroying anything in their path. Now's my chance, she realized, kicking off, forming a single arm of her Susanoo with sword in hand, ready to impale the blonde who had his back turned. Jolie's victorious grin faded as once more an arm of chakra extended out, grabbing the blade as a second clawed hand delivered a devastating blow that crushed the kunoichi into the ground. Jolie screamed in pain, coughing out a large amount of blood. Naruto sighed. If he let things drag on anymore, it would be dangerous to his newfound allies. In an instant several clones appeared and quickly dispatched with the enemies that his allies were fighting. Tetsu and Shugo were engaged in a vicious kenjutsu match as a blur of yellow struck Tetsu and sent him flying, eventually falling into a large ravine that had been filled with sand. Thanks for the help, but that was kind of personal. We had some stuff we needed to deal with, Shugo said, trying not to sound annoyed that Naruto had interfered with his match. Sorry, but the boss wants to end this, so he needs to get everyone else out of here. It's too dangerous to stay here, one of Naruto's clones explained, while Shugo's allies were one by one being carried in a blur far from the field. Do you really have to carry me? Shugo asked with a deadpan. He didn't like the thought of being that helpless. I'm afraid so, otherwise you won't get out of the way in time, Naruto admitted. Shugo raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. What's he planning to do? Trust me, you will see soon enough, the clone replied before grabbing the rebel Uchiha before he could complain anymore. The real Naruto gave a quick nod as the clones indicated that the others were safe, knew what he had to do. He used his chakra to kick off high into the air, almost defying gravity. He then threw both arms into the air and a mixture of blue and black chakra scattered in the air around him as he appeared to hover. Gaara was crouched beside Jolie, both looking up at the surreal sight before them. What the hell is that freak doing now? Jolie asked, coughing up a small amount of blood. Naruto's chakra claws began to gather the chakra, slowly combining the 2 types of chakra. The pressure from the chakra was building to an incredible amount. We have to go. If that hits, there's going to be nothing left of us, Gaara realized in a horrified fascination. She helped Jolie to her feet and the 2 began to make their retreat. However, that was slow due to Jolie's beaten state. Once the large ball of chakra had formed, Naruto compressed the chakra to the size of a ball easily small enough to fit in his mouth. However, the weight of the jutsu had forced him to slowly descend. This is a lot harder without Kurama's help, the blonde thought as he swallowed the small black ball of compressed chakra and found his target. Bijudama, he thought as she let fly a beam of chakra that eviscerated anything it came in contact with, the beam growing back to the full size of the ball of chakra had been before Naruto had swallowed it. The blast continued, ripping a massive hole in the side of the arena. Looks like you've got that down without any help. Not bad, Naruto, Kurama said with a grin as the fox shoulder charged the sand. Biju, who let out a wail of compressed air that narrowly missed Kurama but formed a mini trench halfway across the arena, tearing up trees and tossing stones as it continued on its path. The beam died down. There was no longer any sign of Gaara or Jolie. This seemed to change something in the Ichibi as his dead-looking eyes seemed to gain the spark of life, the beast's pupil brightening. Kurama! Stop, I'm conscious now, Shikaku bellowed quickly as the fox's fist rapidly approached the tanuki in what appeared to be a haymaker. Kurama's fist stopped an inch before making contact. About time, you runt. I could have sent you back to the other side, then you would have to wait to reform again, the fox scoffed. Oh, shut up, you damn fox. I'm not here for you, Shikaku scowled. That reminds me, why are you here? Kurama asked curiously. The one father chose is here. He entrusted us to look after him and vice versa, Shikaku explained. Naruto, who had heard the conversation, landed atop Kurama's head. You didn't have to come all this way. Gaara and the others would have taken care of you in my absence, the blonde said. There is no telling if the humans will respect the Biju in your absence, Naruto. Shikaku came here because this is where you were not wanting to lose his freedom again. Is that about right? Kurama guessed. For the most part, yes, Shikaku admitted. Naruto smiled happily at this news, but began rubbing the back of his neck in embarrassment. That's great and all, but I don't exactly know what I'm supposed to do with the 30-foot Biju. We don't have much room where we're heading, he admitted. I can fix that. You already have my chakra in your system, so all I have to do is... A large stream of chakra flew from Shikaku directly into Naruto's seal. The more that entered the seal, the smaller Shikaku appeared until the tanuki was about the same size as a large horse. There, and if you ever need me at full strength, all you need to do is release my chakra to me, Shikaku explained. Wow, you look like you did in Rikujiji's memory he showed me of you after your birth, Naruto said as he ended his Biju mode and Kurama returned to Naruto's seal. I believe at this size I could be both useful in a fight and a manageable size that I wouldn't get in the way, Shikaku said hopefully. Naruto nodded in agreement. Yeah, I can't see any problem now. Glad to have you join me, Shikaku. Thank you, Naruto-sama, the Biju said with a bow. Don't go bowing to me. We're partners. I'm not your master, alright? Naruto replied a little embarrassed. Very well, but I will watch over my father's legacy, and I vow that no harm shall come to you on my watch. I swear on my pride as a Biju, Shikaku said proudly. Naruto blushed a little in embarrassment at the declaration. You really don't need to go that far, Shikaku. You and all the Biju are my friends, not servants, he said sheepishly, not wanting to abuse his relationship with the Biju for his own gain. Perhaps we should have this conversation someplace else? I'm sure your vixen is worried about your safety, and let's face, the longer we wait around here doing nothing, the more time it gives for our enemies to attack again, Kurama reasoned. Yeah, you're probably right, the blonde thought calmly. Hey Shikaku, it's not safe here, let's get out of here and meet up with the others. Oh, and welcome to the team, Naruto said calmly. He ushered the Biju to follow after him as he walked towards where Shugo and his surviving allies were eyeing him with varying degrees of suspicion. Naruto, do you know that? What do I call that? Shugo asked, his eyes trained on the Ichibi. Naruto thought about the question for a moment. Should I tell them about the Biju? No, that's probably not a good idea. Potential ally or not, it's a risk to tell anyone about the true nature of the Biju, and certainly not an Uchiha. He thought carefully before deciding on an answer. Oh, this is Shikaku, he's a tanuki. He's a lot smaller than he was before, and I sense a lot less chakra, Shugo commented. Yeah, I'm holding on to his chakra for him. It's no big deal for me, Naruto replied, neglecting to mention that the only reason it is possible was the fact he already had a small amount of the Ichibi's chakra sealed within him in the first place. Well, I have to admit, seeing him like this is far less intimidating, Shugo sighed, regaining his composure. So what's the plan now? Naruto shrugged. I'm heading home. I never wanted to get involved in the Empire's business. Isn't it a little late for that now? They're not just going to let you live after all you have done, Shugo replied. Maybe not, but I'm not strong enough by myself to take on the entire Empire, and I should have done enough today to deter them from attacking me for a while, Naruto reasoned. What do you mean not strong enough? You just took out 2 of the strongest shinobi in the Empire single-handedly, not to mention all the soldiers you took out beforehand, one of Shugo's allies said in disbelief. Naruto shook his head. I'm strong, but I'm sure the Empire has tens of thousands of shinobi. I'm only one man. I can't fight a war by myself. The best I can do for now is protect a small area. If I have home ground advantage, I'm confident that I can at least repel any attacks sent my way, the blonde exclaimed confidently. Shugo nodded in agreement. This would not be a fight won in a single battle, nor would it be an out-and-out war. There were steps that they needed to take. Naruto's right. But at the same time, your isolated little village is too small of a target. The Empire won't even hesitate to wipe it off the face of the earth. It would only take one half-decent jutsu for it to happen as well. Yeah, you're right. But what else can I do? Naruto sighed. That's simple. Claim more land for yourself. Give the Empire something else to think about. Take the southern capital for your own. Change the laws of those southern districts, and turn it into a place where you can offer a fair way of life to the people, Shugo replied. Isn't that a lot of land though? It might force the Empire's hand and retaliate, Naruto replied. Shugo and the others all broke out into laughter at this. Sorry Naruto, but the outskirts of the Empire are nothing but trash to the higher-ups. Why do you think it's so lawless? I doubt they will waste any real resources trying to claim it for themselves. At least not until it's too late. Too late? What do you mean by that? Naruto asked calmly. There is more than one way to win a war, Naruto. The side with the superior numbers or weapons can still lose if the people turn against them. If you oppose the Empire and offer real equality, unrest will spread throughout the Empire, not just in the south where it can be ignored, Shugo answered. You think that will work? Naruto pressed. I do. Show the people that there is a better way to live and they will not take being oppressed any longer. People will flood to join your side, even some of the Empire's soldiers will side with you. Whether you like it or not, today you started a war, but for now fight with ideas rather than fists. Shugo declared. You might have a point, still I don't want to rush into anything just yet. But that's definitely an option. Now let's get the hell out of here. Karen-chan will be on the verge of killing my clone and running here herself if we wait any longer, the blonde said with a smile. Chapter 45. So what happens next? Well, now that was certainly an interesting exam this year. A hooded figure spoke to a dark room lit only by the glow of a screen holding the image of Naruto in his Biju cloak. The image had been frozen after he had used his Bijudama. That's one way to put it. Another would be a complete and utter disaster. More than 3/4 of the Empire were watching as that thing dismantled 2 of our strongest warriors and a large group of soldiers under their command. A second hooded figure spoke. Dim lights slowly sprung to life, showing a table with 15 seats, 4 of which were not currently filled. Well, there's not much we can do about that now, is there? But at least on a positive note, it wasn't boring. These exams are so often a bore, the first figure spoke in a calm manner. I have to agree, Gahara promised everyone excitement, and she delivered. I'm sure they will be speaking of these events for years. A third figure chuckled, finding the entire situation quite amusing. Somehow I don't think that what we just witnessed was what she had in mind. But it looks like her relentless ambition has finally come back to bite her in the ass. What a foolish woman. Still, I do hope she's not dead, the first figure to speak replied. What? Could it be that you're feeling sympathy for our dear cousin? I would have thought her passing would be good news for you. After all, it's likely that you would have been her first target when she decided to make a play for more power, a new voice declared with some taunting. It seemed that had been a sore spot for the first speaker, who stood up threateningly, Sharingan eyes glaring at the figure that had just spoken. Do you want to repeat that? I think I must have misheard you. I would have thought you would have understood. I mean, the answer is simple. She would go for the weakest amongst us. It was only a matter of time. She was always determined to be the best, even if she was far from it. The other man replied in an almost taunting manner. He seemed to revel in Gahara's plight. The first speaker scoffed at the insinuation. Gahara's flaws are her own. And as for being concerned for her well-being, hardly. I was more concerned with the fact that should Gahara have perished in that last attack, the responsibility of informing the Emperor and Crown Prince of the events that transpired at the exams will then fall on one of our shoulders. Do you really think that's wise? A new voice questioned, this time a feminine one. We go to the Emperor like this, empty-handed? We should really resolve the situation first, kill that young man and take his head to the Emperor as both a prize and deterrent to anyone who thinks they can stand against us. We can't let a potential uprising go. They need to be crushed immediately. So do I take it that you are volunteering to take that freak on? He killed over 300 of our men without even breaking a sweat, the second hooded figure to speak replied. He's also not alone. It seems little Shugo has been playing all of us for fools for quite a while, another man added, voicing his opinion. He was clearly agitated by the betrayal of one of his clan members. Such a thing was unheard of in the royal family. As much as it pains me to say this, we have no idea how strong that little sneak really is. He kept his Sharingan hidden from us for years. Even without it he was capable. So what? We just do nothing. We are the members of our clan eligible to be considered the next in line for the throne, and every one of you is a coward. The woman spat incredulously. Don't think you can speak to us in such a manner. We know they have to be dealt with. But running in blind is what put Gahara and Jolie in their current situation. It would be more prudent to pool our resources, wait, and prepare for their next move. Then we might have a better idea of what we are dealing with, a much shorter hooded figure declared. There is another issue that requires our attention, that giant creature made of sand, the woman replied, a little sourly. I have never seen anything like it before in my life. It may be a summons from the blonde man as there has been no reports of further fighting since Gahara's defeat, the short figure reasoned. I don't think so. That boy seemed to be just as surprised as the rest of us at seeing that creature. If they are indeed allies, that could be a problem, the first hooded figure to speak declared. All the more reason why we should act, strike them down before they have a chance to regroup, the woman said firmly. Again with this, even if we wanted to, it would take us at least 2 weeks to reach their current location. And that is if we didn't rest. By that time we will be tired and easy pickings for someone like him, another man said derisively. After that the hooded figures continued to bicker for what seemed like hours. In the end the only thing that they could agree on was the fact that none of them were all that fond of one another, mostly because they had no trust in the others. They knew that at any point they could be stabbed in the back by someone attempting to remove an obstacle that stood between them and the position as the next emperor. Meanwhile, Naruto stood next to the much smaller version of Shikaku. Truth was he was still the size of a large horse, but that was much more manageable than the massive full-sized Biju he had been just a few moments earlier. In every direction the devastation that Naruto wrought during the so-called trials was on show. Dead Imperial shinobi were scattered around him, a few still groaning, their final breaths in agony. Are you going to do anything about the survivors, Naruto-sama? Shikaku asked, his head tilted to the side like an inquisitive puppy as he sat back on his haunches. I should probably put those who won't survive out of their misery. They shouldn't have to suffer any more than necessary, Naruto answered forlornly in a grimace. He was certainly not looking forward to what he had to do next. It was one thing killing someone in an even contest, but this felt wrong, even if it was as a kindness. Just the ones who won't survive. Forgive me, Naruto-sama, but wouldn't it be smarter to kill everyone? Are they not your enemies? Shikaku queried. Or if you prefer, I could blanket the area in my sand. There should be no survivors after that. Naruto had to admit he found the proposition tempting. If he did that he wouldn't have to directly deliver the final blow, but at the same time it would kill more than was necessary. I can't let you do that, Shikaku. Thank you for the offer, but I will only finish off those who will not survive their injuries, he answered. That's foolish, Naruto. You should turn this arena to glass. Make sure nothing is left alive. Kurama spoke up in Naruto's mind. As loath as I am to admit it, I agree with Kurama. Allowing any of these men to live is an incredible risk. They could come after you and threaten your life again, Shikaku added, urgently indicating that the presence of Shikaku's chakra in Naruto's system had reopened the link with the Ichibi. He quickly filed the information away for later with the intention to test long-distance communication at a later date. He sadly shook his head. You're right, both of you. But I can't do that. I need to believe that we can come to an understanding. If I show mercy here, then the survivors might remember that. That is the path Erosenin would want me to take, he answered. You can't afford to be restricted by your perverted master's teachings here, Naruto. You have seen how these Uchiha operate. They do not share power. Letting any of these men live will only mean there will be that many more opponents you will have to compete with later. Any one of these men could potentially end your life, even if they are significantly weaker than you are. The point of a kunai does not discriminate between strong and weak. Even a genin can kill a kage if the situation is in their favor. Kurama warned despite knowing that Naruto's mind was already made up. Naruto couldn't help but chuckle at the end, knowing full well that officially he was still ranked as a genin, yet he could easily take on any of the 5 kage should he need. Sorry, Kurama, but I can't just change who I am. I know it's risky, but this is my answer to Rikudajiji's and Jiraiya-sensei's dream. I know peace can't be achieved through words alone anymore, but neither can it be found using solely violence and power. The truth is I think both Azura and Indra were wrong in their answer. So I will forge my own way, Naruto declared. A new sense of determination sweeping over him as a large group of clones appeared around the blonde and instantly set to work checking on his fallen adversaries. A few minutes later most of the clones had dispelled. The truth was that not many of those that had decided to face him and still drew breath were at all likely to survive. You could count the final number on both hands. Now that's done, we should get out of here. I'm guessing Karen-chan and the others will be wondering where I am, and it could be a little tense if Shugo and his men get to them before me. Naruto sighed, thinking out loud. If you would like I can take you there, Naruto-sama. It will be much faster than a normal shinobi running, Shikaku suggested. Yeah, that sounds good, I could use a bit of a rest. By the way, you don't need to call me Sama. As far as I'm concerned we're equals. So just call me Naruto, okay? Naruto asked with a friendly smile. The tanuki paused and thought for a moment before nodding. Very well, I will try and remember that, Naruto. Good, I don't want to have to remind you again, the Jinchuriki said happily as he swiftly jumped upon the Biju's back. The sensation was something new for Naruto. He had moved significantly faster than Shikaku could travel before, but it was an odd sensation as he was expending any effort. The Biju moved like wine through the air, its feet barely touching the ground as it bounded towards the side of the arena, effortlessly leaping over the massive walls without breaking stride. In the distance he could see Shugo and his group hastily heading south in the same direction that Karen and the other forced exam participants had gone. One of Naruto's cones was at their head leading the way but dispelled upon Naruto and Shikaku's arrival. Yo! Naruto said casually from astride the shrunken-tailed beast. Shugo and the others were understandably cautious at seeing the creature. Naruto, is that, the giant creature that appeared in the stadium? The calculative Uchiha asked, careful not to get too close as despite being much smaller in stature, Shikaku still possessed immensely powerful chakra. Oh yeah, don't worry, he won't hurt anyone. This is Shikaku, he's the Ichibi and one of my partners, Naruto replied happily. Speak for yourself. I'm not against killing an Uchiha or two, Shikaku added with a scowl. It was clear that the Ichibi had not forgotten or forgiven the Uchiha after what Madara and Obito had done by reviving the Jubi in Kagaya. It can be okay. Shugo stammered in surprise. Yeah, the Biju are actually really smart, but the truth is I don't really know most of them all that well, Naruto replied, rubbing the back of his head almost apologetically. Biju? Shugo queried. Realization struck Naruto. That's right, you guys aren't from the elemental nations. I guess I forgot this place is completely different than where I'm from. He chuckled, getting a look of disbelief and a few people shaking their heads questioning whether it was smart to be following him. Ignoring these looks, Naruto decided on a very quick explanation. The Biju are 9 beings of concentrated chakra. Each one is incredibly powerful. They sometimes get a bad reputation for destroying things. But it must be hard not to when they're the size of a small mountain, he finished with a small laugh. This information seemed to leave Shugo and his men stunned. Once more it was their leader who asked the unspoken question. You said there is 9 of these things. Are you telling me that you have 8 more sitting around to use as a weapon? We are not weapons, Uchiha. Why is it you see something like us and think just because it is powerful it is nothing but a tool? Shikaku raged, sand being flung up around its feet threateningly. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend, Shugo replied as calmly as possible. However, the quickness of the apology showed he was indeed intimidated. I'll lay off him, Shikaku. He's just interested in you, that's all, Naruto said, calming the irritated Biju. In any case, to answer your question, only Shikaku and Kurama are here with me. Kurama? So that's another one of these Biju, right? Shugo's question was more of a confirming statement. Yeah, Kurama's the Kyubi, the 9-tailed fox, the blonde explained. I see, so their title refers to the number of tails, I guess, Shugo theorized. That's right, from the Ichibi, Shikaku all the way to Kurama, Naruto said happily as if he was talking about a long-lost family he had been reunited with. Shugo nodded in understanding. Wow, that's a lot to take in, and I know they're not supposed to be weapons, but man, if you had the other 8 we could probably take the Empire head on. We wouldn't even need to retreat and make plans. Well, that is only a matter of time, Shikaku declared. Really? Naruto asked, slightly stunned. Of course, you are our father's legacy and we will protect you. The other Biju will be drawn here when it's their turn to rematerialize, the Tanuki said without a doubt. Naruto beamed at the thought of being able to see all the other Biju again. The only exception would have to be Gyuki. As long as Kurabi lived, the Hachibi was going nowhere. That's awesome, I can't wait to see everyone again. It will take a while, it's usually a year per tail, due to the increase in chakra, Kurama informed the blonde. Really? Man, that sucks, Naruto said, his mood slightly dampened. What does? Shugo asked. Kurama just told me it will be able 7 years before all the Biju are all going to be alive again. 1 Biju each year, It's a real pain in the ass, Naruto explained. You can talk to the other one even when it's not here? Shugo asked, once more stunned by the sudden information. Kurama is always with me, he's sealed inside me, Naruto said before going into a brief explanation about Biju as well as informing him that he is technically the Jinchuriki to all 9 Biju with part of their chakra sealed within him. He left out the part where most of their chakra sealed within him was still locked away by the Rikuru's Sannin after defeating Kagaya. Still, what he had not only provided him the ability to communicate with the other Biju, but also added a bit of protection from them being sealed into another host. They already had one. With Shikaku's return, however, he felt access to his chakra once again return. Do you think this means once the others are revived I can access the Rikuta Sage mode again? He asked the fox. It's possible, but don't forget Gyuki's chakra has also been sealed, yet the octopus still lives in that poor excuse for a rapper, Kurama reasoned. There's nothing wrong with Byakuzen, B and Gyuki are partners, just like us, Naruto replied, defending the man who started the process that led to him and Kurama being friends. The conversation was stopped there as they were now quickly approaching Karen and the civilians, each being carried by one of Naruto's clones. Once Karen felt the real Naruto approaching, she stopped dead in her tracks and all but tackled the blonde off the back of Shikaku. Baka, who do you think you are, taking on an army all by yourself? She said, trying to disguise how worried she really was by burying her face into his chest. While the rest of the group continued for a short distance to give the two at least some semblance of privacy before stopping to rest. Ah, come on, Karen-chan, it all worked out. Besides, you had my clones to keep you informed of everything that was going on, Naruto replied with a sheepish laugh, but Karen just tightened her grip, refusing to let go in case he would suddenly disappear on her. That isn't an excuse, she said, violently shaking her head against his chest, her dark blood-red hair shaking about in a way that reminded the blonde of his mother when she was angry. You could have been killed, then I would have been all alone. You can't leave me, she all but demanded. Naruto smiled lovingly down at the hopelessly devoted Kunoichi. Then he had the pang of realization that he was just as hopeless as she was. The thought of ever leaving her was unthinkable. Don't worry, Karen-chan, I'm not going anywhere, he said, lightly kissing the top of her head. Karen slowly lifted her head so they could share a quick but loving kiss that helped reassure the both of them. But they were brought out of their own little world when a loud cough drew their attention to Shugo, who was standing just a few feet away. If you're both finished, we have something to discuss. Naruto nodded, knowing already what they needed to talk about. We need to plan our next move, right? The Uchiha nodded in affirmative. We need a base of operations that is large enough that the Empire can't simply just wipe it out with a few jutsu, he said, calmly indicating that the small village that Naruto and Karen had called home would no longer be safe. Then it should also be somewhere easily fortified with a clear line of sight in all directions, Naruto said, already guessing where Shugo would propose. Yes, the first blow has been struck, but they will not sit idle for long. Our best bet to buy us time is to capture the southern capital. I believe you are already familiar with the city. The southern capital is in a highly strategic location that would give us control of most of the Gaharaheim's region. We could effectively operate as a country, supplied by the farmlands around the city and smaller villages in the region, Shugo reasoned. The thick walls and sheer size of the city would also be a deterrent to any attacking force as well, Naruto mumbled, seeing the logic in the Uchiha's proposal. Shugo nodded, already plotting their next move. Exactly, the best option would be to take the capital, and then declare the southern region as a separate country from the Empire under your protection. They won't like it, but it will buy us some time, a year, maybe even more with the show you put on back at the trials. Karen didn't like the sound of this. She knew that if they did this, then a war with the Empire was inevitable, and any way she looked at it, an army of shinobi against a handful of shinobi on Naruto's side was not good odds. What if we do nothing? If we just go back to our village and pretend that nothing ever happened? She asked. All she wanted was to be able to spend her days with Naruto, maybe start a family, a thought that brought a small blush to her cheeks. Well, the Council of 12 will bicker amongst about what they should do. None of them will want to be the one to take responsibility for your extermination. Eventually the Crown Prince or the Emperor will order one of them to do it, so I would give us 3 months maximum before they send assassination squads to purge all of the villages in the south. The Empire can't accept someone as powerful as Naruto to exist outside of their control, and if he's seen as being inactive they will see it as a sign of weakness, Shugo explained. The young Uchiha was well versed in the world of the Empire's politics. Whilst he had spent the best part of his life trying to avoid it, the easiest way to achieve that goal was to become a master of the game. Right, so an open challenge to their authority will make them question themselves, Naruto replied. It seems like a fine line to walk. We have to cause a big enough mess for them that they're intimidated, but not enough to force their hand into attacking us before we're ready for them. Kami, I wish Shikamaru was here, this sounds perfect for him. Then use this will be a learning experience. You may not have your lazy friend, but this Uchiha seems to be quite the tactician. He hid a lot of plans for a long time waiting for the perfect time to act. As much as I hate the Uchiha clan, this one could be useful, Kurama spoke calmly. You're quite right. It will be a massive slap in the face of the Empire to lose even a small portion of its land. The only thing that will stave their hand is the fact that the southern outer rim is the poorest part of the Empire, so they will not be in as much of a hurry to retrieve it. Shugo explained. So they will wait a year. By that time Matabi will have reformed, and if Shikaku is right about the other Biju coming to me, then we will have 3 Biju. That's enough to defend any city. Naruto said in deep thought. Somehow I don't doubt that, Shugo admitted. However, there are other ways to win a war without attacking directly. They could attack the smaller villages or cut off our supply lines. Naruto sighed. Either way he looked at it, they simply didn't have enough men to just simply repel the enemy when they attacked and live a contented life. If that's the case, should they use that tactic, then we will have to retaliate, Naruto answered, a resigned determination forming. The slightest of smiles passed Shugo's features for a brief moment, but it went unnoticed by either Naruto or Karen. I think that would be the best option. I think we can save the discussion of what comes next until after we claim the southern capital. We have quite a few hours of travel at full speed before we reach our target. It will probably not be until after dark. We can save that until tomorrow. You said yourself, even if we do nothing we have 3 months before any retaliation will come in. I think we should ask the civilians what they want to do. I can have my clones take them home. But they need to be warned that staying there won't be safe, Naruto said, not really wanting to run for the whole day and then have to overthrow a city. That is a smart move. Perhaps you should recommend they move to the capital for safety, Shugo suggested. Why stop there? Each one of the civilians we were able to save is capable of wielding chakra. I know it's only a year, but if we train them, they could become shinobi. You can't deny we're a little short on manpower at the moment. Karen said there was not much she could do to prevent the cards from falling where they were. But if they were going to war, then she would do everything in her power to make sure they won. I can see the merit in that, but it may prove difficult to convince them that fighting is a wise idea. These people have been looked down on and oppressed their whole lives by what would seem like an unsurmountable force. But perhaps after seeing what Naruto was able to do they will feel empowered, Shugo admitted, slightly impressed by Karen's idea. They spent the next half an hour explaining the options to the civilians and explaining what they would be doing. Most had no desire to join Naruto's militia but knew that they would be hunted for the rest of their lives no matter what they chose. Because of this a large number agreed to join, while the vast majority had decided that the southern capital would be the safest place for them and their families. So once more Naruto made a large collection of clones that piggybacked each of the civilians back to their respective villages. Soon the only remaining civilians were Rei and Tenji. The weight of the past few days had really hit the usually energetic and happy Tenji, who had barely said a word to Naruto or Karen except to be the first of the civilians that had offered to join his militia. Rei was dealing with the situation far better. It was as if she had already accepted the fate, and now was simply waiting for whatever happened next. Naruto slowly approached the pair and sat down. Knowing that they would soon be making a move, they still had a lot of ground to cover before making camp for the night. This is all my fault, he sighed. Yeah, it is, Rei said firmly, as Naruto's shoulders sagged in depression. But it's alright, you just have to make sure we win, she added, a small smirk playing on her face showing that she really didn't blame him for anything. The truth is, even if I was 1/10 as strong as you are, I would have been fighting against the Empire years ago. I hate the way they treat people, but I have never been able to do anything about it. I'd always thought we just had to accept that to them we were trash. You changed that. The spiky-haired blonde looked up in mild shock. This was so unlike Rei. She had always been so careful and keen to follow the rules. But then here was admitting that it was only because she had felt helpless to change anything. The anger he felt for the Empire spiked yet again. It's just like all those years ago in Wave Country. They feel so helpless that they can't even fathom real freedom. It has to stop. Later that day, back at the arena, a bloody and utterly defeated man clawed his way out of a deep crack in the earth. His rust-colored hair stained with his own blood, and deep cuts were shown on his skin, but the blood was being held back. If not for his unique bloodline, he would most certainly have died of blood loss. Tetsu's eyes were clouded over as if he was moving on autopilot. And here I thought I looked bad, a woman's voice called out to him slightly weakly. Tetsu robotically turned his head to the somewhat familiar voice. His eyes widened when he saw Gahara laying on her back propped up against a large rock. How? He asked as the full extent of his surroundings began to set in. Well, the short answer is, we got our asses kicked, Gahara chuckled weakly. I only survived by using my wind blades to cut a hole in the ground to avoid that jutsu. It took all of my chakra to avoid a single attack, and he wasn't even trying," she sighed almost longingly. "Are you serious?" Tetsu stammered, thinking he may have misheard due to exhaustion and pain from his injuries. Gahara chuckled lightly, her breath shallow from both physical and chakra exhaustion. "Nope, I doubt he showed us anywhere near his full strength. And then there was his chakra." She paused, biting her bottom lip as she thought about the confrontation with Naruto. It was an endless expanse, there was so much, and so oppressive. It was hard to even breath in his presence, she admitted. It was exhilarating. I've never felt my heart beat so fast. She panted, slowly licking her lips almost hungrily. Tetsu knew that Gahara was unstable to say the least, but she had always had a knack for judging the strength of others. She had handpicked both himself and Shugo when they were young and others thought they wouldn't make it. She was also considered a genius despite what most Uchiha considered the weakness of her elemental affinity. So for her to react like this after facing Naruto, he knew that their troubles were far from over. "What happened to Jolie-sama?" he asked eventually. "Dead," Gahara admitted passively, seemingly uncaring that her daughter had been killed. "The jutsu that almost killed me vaporized her. No matter how hard anyone looks, they won't find a body." A jutsu of such destructive power, it was truly a thing of beauty. "I wonder how it works," she added longingly. "If it was that powerful, it's probably best we never see it again. With that said, I am sure the Emperor will eventually order you to deal with Naruto. He lives in our region after all. So it will fall to you to organize an assassination," Tetsu guessed. "Kill him? Oh no, that can't happen. Naruto-kun is precious. I can't let anything bad happen to him," Gahara said, chewing on her bottom lip. Tetsu's eyes widened, hoping to see that she was joking, and his blood ran cold to see just how serious she was. "Oh, this can't be good." Chapter 46. A Capital Offense. "Well, it has certainly been a long time since I have been here. I guess it's still impressive even if it is the smallest of the 5 capital cities in the empire." Shugo sighed. "This is the smallest? But it's huge. Just look at all of those massive towers." Naruto gaped in amazement. Shugo and his fellow defectors laughed at the blonde's comment. "Wow, you really aren't from around here, are you? The southern capital is the largest city in all the outer districts of the empire, that's for sure, but compared to others it's tiny. In fact, the Imperial capital is the size of the 4 other capitals combined," Shugo explained in a light-hearted manner. "Wow, that must be as big as a whole country," Naruto spoke in wonder. Even Karen seemed impressed. "The closest thing we have in the elemental nations to anything like even the southern capital is AIM." Giant towers were built by each of the previous leaders of Amigekyo, mostly for defense, and pipes connected the towers at varying heights, turning the city into a vertical maze. Karen sighed, explaining a little bit of the elemental nations. "I always liked AIM. They never once tried to capture me. It was a little bit too wet for my liking, though." Shikaku mused, moving to the head of the group. The currently horse-sized Biju analyzed the thick walls, trying to determine how much energy it would take to destroy them if needed. "I guess that must be how the Biju determine if they like a place, huh?" Karen guessed dryly. She had only ever talked with Kurama, and that had been more of a distinct threat and promise of imminent death, rather than a pleasant conversation. "I couldn't say. After father died, we Biju split up. We only ever met up with each other when we had to," Shikaku answered casually. The Biju gained a contemplative yet somewhat happy look on his face. "I liked open spaces, so the sands around Suna were perfect. But Kurama liked trees and caves, you know, all that nature crap, so I guess he preferred the land of fire." Naruto chuckled while ignoring the mild protest from the fox. He too gazed at the walls of the giant capital, though he did so with a sense of hesitance. He had no desire to just walk in there and start raising hell. He didn't even know where to start. "I suppose destroying the gates would be a start," he mused flatly. In fact, despite agreeing that taking the city for their own was the best course of action, he didn't feel like now was the time. Shugo and his men didn't seem to share in his apprehension, however. On the contrary, they seemed eager to stake their claim as opposition to the empire. "Shall we begin?" Shugo asked. He was far calmer than the rest of his men, but even he couldn't completely hide his desire. Naruto began to open his mouth to reply, but before even the first syllable could be uttered, he was cut off by Karen. "I don't think we should, not yet." The group of defectors looked as though they had just been winded, clearly struggling to come to terms with what the redhead had just said. Sighing, Karen decided that leaving them in the dark was not the best idea. "It's just, we haven't even been home yet, there are people waiting for us. The least we should do is tell them what's going on, and explain why we need to leave." Naruto let out a gasp. "Oh Kami, Bachan is going to kill me for starting a war." The look of terror on the blonde's features frightened even Shugo. He just knew that whoever Naruto's Bachan was, she was clearly not someone he ever wanted to be on the bad side of. I think that is actually a good idea. We could all use some rest before staking our claim on the southern region of the Empire. Even if the only resistance is going to be low-level soldiers and a few wealthy Empire businessmen with bodyguards, it's never smart to go into a fight already tired, Shugo reasoned, reluctantly nodding his acceptance to at least for now leave the capital in Imperial control. Alright, we will wait for today. That way we will be able to relax for a while, Naruto sighed. He knew that Sunade would likely give him a hard time for everything that went down only a few days ago. He had practically declared war on the Empire, not something that she would agree with. But if he followed that up by attacking a city without even speaking to the former Hokage, then he could expect the kind of treatment she had usually reserved for Jiraiya. The day continued to pass in mostly silence. Naruto's newfound allies felt out of place, almost as if they were not welcome within the group that remained, and they were somewhat right. Rei and Tenji, the only remaining civilians of the group, were a little uneasy having a member of the royal family with them, and also knew that it put their village at risk by brining them there. On the other hand, they also knew that they had no choice anymore but to believe in Naruto and Karen. They had seen with their own eyes just how strong the blonde was. He had not only defeated close to 500 Imperial soldiers, he manhandled several elites, including 2 of the top members of the royal family. Knowing Naruto could hold his own gave them hope for a new way of life for them and their family. In the past, Rei had all but given up, even as the only real hope for their own village as part of the hunting party sent to make extra money and find food for the village. She had never really seen any sign of things getting any better. But when Naruto and Karen showed up, things began to change. They had village walls to keep out raiders. Run-down homes were now looking new again, and now they could stand up to the Empire. Or at least a few of them could. I want to be able to help. How we have been so far is no life. I would rather fight and die on my feet than live on my knees, she thought when the forest containing their village came into view later that afternoon. I will ask Naruto to train me. Maybe, just maybe I can fight with them, she decided. The small forest that adequately concealed village hadn't changed at all since Naruto had left. It had only been a week ago the last time he had seen the front gates of the village, but with all that had happened it seemed like an age. Well, better get this over with, he said hesitantly before signaling the gate to open. Cho had been having a rather quiet week. With the village walls in place, there was a sense of security that they have never had before, and the presence of Sunade seemed to keep everyone calm. Yes, all in all it had been a peaceful time for Cho and everyone who lived within the walls. But that peacefulness was destroyed the moment he saw the group in front of the gate. Naruto, Karen, Rei and Tenji were now accompanied by several Imperial soldiers, one even wearing the crest of the royal family. Oh, this can't be good, he mumbled as the gate slowly opened, already fearing the worst. Naruto began rubbing the back of his neck as hushed whispers began to spread through the quickly gathering crowd at the gates of the village. So I bet you all have questions, huh? The blonde chuckled sheepishly. Yes, and while you're at it you can also explain why I felt you using Biju chakra a few days ago? Sunade spoke calmly yet with a sense of authority, as she quickly moved through the crowd. Well, it's a bit of a long story. I think it might be better if we take this somewhere a little more quiet, Shugo suggested, already able to sense that Sunade was not someone he would want to mess with anytime soon. Sunade nodded and turned away, walking towards Naruto's home, gesturing for Naruto's group and Cho to follow. Since when did she take charge of the village? Naruto wondered, now slightly regretting his decision not to just take the capital beforehand. The crowd separated as Naruto's group walked forward. They followed close behind, eager to listen in on whatever their conversation was going to reveal. As soon as they entered the small house, Sunade moved to the living room and took a seat before folding her arms, an impatient look on her face. Talk, she demanded the moment Naruto found his way into the room. For the next hour, Naruto, Karen and Shugo all gave a recount of what happened over the last few days, even including what their plans for the Empire were. For Sunade's part, she sat without asking any questions, wanting to hear everything first. Once the story was finished, the room fell quiet. Everyone, even those that were unaware of who she was, seemed to be waiting for a response from the last remaining Sannin. How long do we have? Sunade finally spoke, breaking the tension. It depends on a few things, but at a bare minimum I would say 3 months. Shugo answered quickly, unable to get a proper read on the Senju. And at most? Sunade asked calmly, her eyes shut in contemplation. Shugo paused at this question. He originally guessed a little over a year, but there were more variables than that. All calculations so far had been based on the death of those that had been at the trials. It will depend on Gaharaheim. If she died, I would say we have a year, maybe a couple of months either side. If she survived, I think we would have far more time than that, maybe closer to 2 years. Why more time? Naruto asked, a little puzzled. Both Karen and Sunade seemed to be rather interested in the answer themselves. Despite her eccentric nature, Gaharaheim is actually rather easy to figure out, Shugo answered calmly. He took a sip of tea before continuing. She has always been ambitious and clever. Too clever for her own good, actually. Get to the point, Uchiha, Sunade demanded impatiently. Shugo paused for a second as if calculating his chances to escape unharmed before continuing quickly. The show Naruto put on for the Empire will have shocked them. However, we are in Gaharaheim's territory. Uprisings fall to the governor of a region to deal with. She will be ordered to take responsibility. That is something that she most certainly will not do, he answered with finality. Because she knows she will lose, Sunade said with a smirk. Kid really has gotten stronger. He's long surpassed me. Yes and no. I have no doubt she has no desire to challenge Naruto to another fight. In fact, I think she might actually act against the Empire, Shugo added. So she hates the Empire too then? Naruto asked hopefully. I mean, we could use more allies. For his part, Shugo couldn't help the short scoff that escaped him. Well, she certainly does hate the Empire, or to be more precise, she hates the members of her family that are ahead of her in line to take the throne. She would see Naruto as a means to an end, hoping he will kill them for her. She hated her own family that much? Naruto asked in disbelief. Believe it or not, yes. The young Uchiha exile replied. Still, that is pure speculation. Naruto, you hit her with a Bijudama, didn't you? Sunade said with some finality, indicating the conversation was not important. Naruto nodded an affirmative, so she continued. Then we act as if it's a worst-case scenario. We have 3 months before they attack. I may not have seen it for myself, but your assessment of the capital would suggest that we must capture the city before any reinforcements arrive to garrison the area. From there we need to send a message to the Empire claiming independence. I'm assuming you can facilitate that, Uchiha? Yes, ma'am, Shugo answered automatically. Very well then. Naruto, you will act tomorrow. We have no time to waste. You will enter the village, capture all members of government, or sympathizers. Then the leaders of the so-called gangs you told me of, they can no longer operate as they have been. Dismantle them, the retired Hokage ordered. Just capture? Shouldn't we kill them to send a message? One of the officers who deserted with Shugo asked. No, we need to send a different message to the one that Naruto did, Sunade answered with the trained patience from her time in Konoha. Naruto's message was one of power. Now we need to show the rest of the Empire, the downtrodden and oppressed, see that we are different, that we can allow people to live a better life. That may take more time than a few months though, Shugo reasoned. Of course, but you need to plan now for the future. After we crush the first assault, our message will spread. We will also use that time to claim more land, the blonde explained. Many seemed confused by this declaration, but Shugo could see the reasoning behind it. I see. We claim more land in retaliation rather than in aggression, allowing us to spread a message of strength, non-aggression, and it will also buy more time before another attack. You seem well versed in both politics and war, Sunade-san. Naruto grinned happily. Yes, Tsunade-bachan was a great Hokage after all. She knows way more than I do about planning and strategy. I'm not all that great at things like that. Still, I wish Shikamaru was here. He would already be able to plan a strategy when any battle we could face. What's a Hokage? Shugo asked with confused interest. It's the leader of our old ninja village. It's not important here in the slightest, Sunade answered flatly. There was no way she would readily hand out information about the elemental nations to anyone here, and she would need to remind Naruto not to do the same. Regardless, until we have claimed a new base of operations, there is not much left to discuss. However, for the sake of the villagers here, I suggest you and your men camp outside the gates, she added, untrusting of the Uchiha and his men. That's fine, I can understand their apprehension and distrust, Shugo replied, signaling for his men to stand. Before you go, how many more men do you have hidden in the Empire? The busted blonde asked with a steely gaze. Shugo smirked knowingly. Enough, he added cryptically. Sunade was not satisfied with the answer but knew that she would not get anything else out of the Uchiha. Elsewhere, the land around Gahara's mansion was, for lack of a better word, chaos. The students who had survived the exam had come to the realization that most of their commanding officers were dead. Of all the officers that had been at the trials, less than a handful were still standing, and many of that had survived may never be able to be soldiers again. The Empire had never experienced defeat before. As such, there were so few medics that even normally minor wounds would soon become fatal from lack of treatment due to the number of injured. Those that were available were sequestered to healing officers that Gahara ordered only. You know, if you end up with scars, I am going to be disappointed, the albino Uchiha said with a feral smirk as she entered a room with only a single man, heavily bandaged, the faint smell of blood greatly improving her mood. Well, you know how I hate to disappoint Gaharaheim, but I may not have a choice in this matter. I needed to use my blood release to keep my organs functioning, couldn't use it to stitch my skin up like I normally would. Tetsu answered half-heartedly. Well, I'll just have to make sure the medics have the right commitment to making sure you stay scar-free. After all the times I have tried, I can't have you scarring up to our new investment. Gahara replied, a far-off look in her eye as she lightly bit her bottom lip. Tetsu shuddered at the sight. He didn't know what the princess was thinking, but he doubted it was anything good. Forgive me, Haim-sama. But I must ask, what do we do now? You said you have no intention to go after Naruto, but the Emperor will not allow you to let him go unpunished. He will become our responsibility, whether we like it or not. Gahara grinned, her mind already set. Aji-sama will, as you say, attempt to force my hand, but that may not lead to Naruto-kun's demise. Perhaps a new emperor, or empress, is in order. Tetsu was stunned. Whatever he was expecting, it had not been this. But Gaharaheim, you are sounding just like Shugo. This is treason. The man with the rust-colored hair went to stand only to be floored by a furious gaze from the princess. You forget your place, Tetsu-chan. Your loyalty is to nobody but myself, do you understand? She seethed very slowly. A small cut was opening up under the man's eye. My loyalty is to the Empire. As long as there is an Uchiha on the throne, nothing else matters. Remember that. The strong rule, in fighting, is expected. It is the way our family works, you know this. Power and cunning go before all else. Still, for even little Shugo to show his hand in such a manner, it matters not. It happened maybe a little earlier than I had expected, but I knew it would happen. You knew Shugo would betray us? The injured man asked in disbelief, trying to ignore the new pain the cut under his eye was causing him, as Gahara was using her wind blades to keep the wound open. Betray us? No, the princess admitted bitterly. I knew he was hiding his strength, and had ulterior motives, but don't we all? I had just assumed he was waiting for the old man to finally bite the dust before attempting to kill me. Maybe even take my place in the fight to be the next emperor, she admitted almost longingly. If you expected him to try and kill you, why keep him as your bodyguard? Tetsu couldn't help but ask. Sure, he would not like the answer. So I could kill him myself, Gahara answered simply. Oh, how great it would have been to see the defiance leave his eyes as I bled him dry. It would have been ecstasy. She shuddered just thinking about it. But now I have something so much better to look forward to. Yep, now I know for sure. I don't even want to think about what she has planned for Naruto, Tetsu thought as he was finally able to close the wound that she had opened. He then remembered a question that had been slowly gnawing at him since he had pulled himself out the ground after Naruto's Bijudama. How are the students? He asked, but Gahara understood the real question. How is my brother? Those that survived have passed. I could care less who they are. Now if you will excuse me, I have a report to send to the capital, then rebuild my forces. She answered with some finality before turning to leave. Just when I thought she was starting to act a little more human, Tetsu sighed, casting one last gaze toward the albino as she shut the door behind her. He could hear the sounds of her barking orders to officers and medics alike that had the misfortune of crossing her path, even a few cries of agony as she cut several that didn't act quickly enough for her liking. The next day, the sun had not yet risen when Naruto and Sunade landed at the edge of a clearing, the massive walls of the southern capital just visible as an outline in the dim dawn light. Neither hesitated, moving briskly across the field. Behind them they were soon followed by Shugo and his squad, and finally Karen. The two poor gate guards didn't know what hit them. The blonde Konoha shinobi disabled them with ease before Sunade blasted the gates open with a single punch. Shugo's men burst through the open gate, splitting into pairs as they moved to capture an area of the village before there could be any outcry or warning to those loyal to the Empire. They know where they're going, right? Sunade asked while discreetly checking that Naruto had properly secured the two guards, smiling to herself happily when she found there was nothing to worry about. Of course he can do something simple like that. Even though I know he's far stronger than even I was at my peak, I can't help but see that little kid that ran his mouth when we first met. Guess I can't claim to beat him with a single finger anymore either, huh? She thought with a smile. Yes, all members of the military have maps and blueprints of all capital cities and tactical strongholds in the Empire. We will have control of this city before the sun hits the gate, the Uchiha exile replied with a smirk. The main issue will be outing the gangs that have control of the civilian population of the city. Most of the people recruited into those gangs are forced into it. I think given the choice they will happily give up their leaders, Naruto added with confidence. True to Shugo's predictions, there was no resistance to their uprising, the working Imperials and their guards were brought to the city center, a large open square clearly designed for large city-wide events. As the sun moved higher in the sky, the occupants of the large city became aware that something was wrong. The Imperial buildings around them were all burning, the flags that symbolized the Empire torn down, and the massive gates that were usually shut tight lay all on the ground, ripped off their hinges. Slowly a crowd began to gather, gawking at the tied-up Imperials and guards that were screaming profanities for all to hear and demanding they be released. It appeared that there was nobody guarding the prisoners, but regardless, nobody moved to help them. In fact, there were a few carefully hidden projectiles thrown at the prisoners, causing more of an outcry and promises of death to the people of the village. "Ah, shut up, you guys are giving me a headache." A feminine voice seemed to come from nowhere, but looking up showed a squad of the would-be liberators sitting atop balconies that overlooked the square. A young woman with long black hair with streaks of silver dropped down and began to gag the prisoners. "Please, I don't understand, we are loyal," one of the prisoners begged. From his hiding place, Naruto recognized the man as the owner of the construction company where he had purchased the required materials for his home and the walls around the riverside village. The young woman smirked, leaning down to whisper in his ear, "So are we. But not to the Empire." The look of fear on the older man's face told the others all they needed to know. They all from that point seemed to come to the same conclusion: they were going to die. Hidden in the crowd, Naruto began to walk forward. The crowd is large enough now, he thought. Does that mean I can be big again? The voice of Shikaku asked hopefully as a small creature made of sand peeked out of his robes, perched atop the blonde's shoulder. "Yeah, not too large though, just enough to be intimidating and get their attention," Naruto replied. Shikaku nodded readily and hopped on the ground, beginning to rapidly increase in size as its chakra slowly was released from the blonde, quickly becoming large enough to tower over the surrounding civilians as it happily trotted after the blonde Jinchuriki. The flashy arrival had the required effect, causing everyone in the area, civilian or otherwise, to turn their attention to the approaching blonde. "Why you?" The old man stammered, his eyes widening in disbelief. He would have continued, but he too found himself gagged by the kunoichi that had joined him with Shugo. "Well, I guess it's time," the blonde thought with a little apprehension as he moved up to where the Imperials were still tied up, his face set for the trials that would come next. He knew things would only get harder, but he was ready to face those challenges. "It's not Hokage, but it's something,"